Chapter 2768. In a split second, Luo Qingshun suddenly raised her right hand. The exquisite ring rushed into the sky and flashed with a dazzling golden light. She vaguely remembered the words Shun Qingfeng said to the original owner before he died. The immortal medicine man's destiny was not to use her blood to save people. She had her own things to do and her own destiny. Master, I may not be able to hear you say you love me. Countless golden lights filled the sky. When they fell to the ground, there were already drops of blood like snow. She seemed to have heard it. At the last moment, he gently called her name. But he didn't say. He loved her. The red snow was hot when touched. Medicine men were afraid of fire. Once the surrounding temperature reached a certain height, the medicine man could be turned into ashes. Luo Qingshun thought she could use the exquisite ring to kill the person who wanted to kill them. She never thought that once the shield of the mountain and river was broken, she would immediately die. This was not known by anyone in Jianghu. Perhaps even Shun Qingfeng didn't know. Qi Tiangu crazily shouted and rushed forward like a madman to catch the falling red snow. He knew that it was his last hope. Tiangu, calm down. Gu Daixiang rushed forward and gently hugged her. There must be a way. She didn't want to see him in pain. If he was in pain, she would feel the pain of her heart being squeezed together. What can we do? What can we do? Qi Tiangu roared. Why? Why is this immortal medicine man so selfish? I just want a little of her blood. Why would she rather die than give me her blood? He could feel the goo poison swimming in his blood and corroding his body. When he knew that the only thing in this world that could save him did not exist, he would fall into a kind of despair, endless despair. Yes, you're right. Gu Daixiang bit her lip and said, She's really selfish. Why is she so selfish? We're thinking of a way. Don't worry. Huh? A sneer, with a feeling that had not yet returned to his mind, spread in his heart bit by bit. It was a kind of suffocating pain, uncontrollably nibbling away at his nerves, as if he had gone mad. The red snow landed in his palm and on his shoulder. His trembling hand wanted to grab it, but he didn't dare to touch it. What happened? What exactly happened? The surroundings seemed to have suddenly quieted down, and no sound could enter his ears. His heart felt empty, as if even living had lost its meaning. The moment he closed his eyes, he seemed to be able to recall the scene of their first meeting. A faint cup of tea, the moment they looked at each other. It was as if a beam of light had entered his life without any warning. He went from being at a loss to accepting her existence, getting used to her existence, and indulging in her existence. But one day, when this beam of light suddenly took away his life, he felt like he was going to die from the pain. It was really so painful. What are you laughing at? Qi Tiangu looked at him angrily and said, It's all your fault. It's all your fault. If you didn't take the medicine man away first, she would be mine. Sigh, why can't you fulfill my sister's wish? Why must you make my sister suffer? Gu Daixiang stood in Qi Tiangu's position and accused Feng Sai with tears in her eyes. He narrowed his eyes, and there was no light in his dim eyes. A few seconds later, he said softly, If you give me another chance, I will never come back to save you. Chapter 2769. In the third year of Yongchu, the Jianghu experienced a great battle. From the Battle of Medicine King Valley to the Battle of the Black Lake in Magnetic State, all the sects suffered a certain degree of damage. Now, it was the 6th year of Yongchu. It was said that 3 years ago, a red snow fell from the sky above a mansion in Magnetic State. When the snow touched, it was boiling hot, but when it fell to the ground, it was as cold as frost. The people of the Jianghu did not know what happened in that mansion, only that many people died. The people brought by the young master of the sword trial villa, Qi Tiangu, all died. Even Qi Tiangu himself was seriously injured and fled. The medicine man of immortality also disappeared that year. The sect of the Jianghu all thought that the sword trial villa took the medicine man of immortality away, but that was not the case. Not long after, Qi Tiangu was crippled of all his martial arts. Everyone believed that the sword trial villa did not get the medicine man of immortality. The soul release Gu scripture had invaded the body. Other than the medicine man of immortality, there was almost no cure. In order to let Chi Tian go live, after crippling his martial arts, the villa master sacrificed his own life to protect the heir of the sword trial villa. Everything seemed to have entered a terrifying cycle. Gu Liushang died for his son, Feng Chenin. Villa master Qi died for his son, Qi Tiange. Ultimate skills did not make people stronger. Instead, they made people lose their loved ones. After that red snow, Feng Chenin disappeared. A year later, his whereabouts were known. If Medicine King Valley had not been renovated, the scattered disciples of Medicine King Valley in the Jianghu would have suddenly gathered in Medicine King Valley. Perhaps no one knew that Feng Chenin went to Medicine King Valley and lived there. Many people in Medicine King Valley knew that he and Shun Xingfeng were friends despite the difference in age. When Shun Xingfeng was still alive, he often talked to him about Medicine King Valley. That year, Medicine King Valley was surrounded by people of both good and evil. He came from far away, but still could not save him. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Feng Chenin stood on the high steps in white. Medicine King Valley, which had been covered in snow for 1,000 years, did not seem to have changed at all. When he came, many corpses were buried under the snow. No one cared about them, and no one dared to come close. After all, if one walked too much at night, they were bound to encounter ghosts. But he had come here for 3 things. First, to reorganize the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Second, to find out who had harmed the Luo family. Third, to meet a ghost. Even if it were an evil ghost, it wouldn't matter. Dragon roaring hero. Just as he was standing in the snow, deep in thought, a former disciple of the Medicine King Valley walked up and said, "A Mei sect leader, Miss Fong Ro requests an audience." He frowned lightly and said, "Have her wait in the front hall." He closed his eyes and felt a faint pain in his heart. After a long time, he said with a self-deprecating smile, "It seems that many things have happened in these years, but I can't feel the passage of time." It was as if as long as he closed his eyes, the scene on the streets of Magnetic State would still appear in his mind. She gently took his hand with a mischievous smile on her face. He promised to protect her, but in the end, he couldn't do anything. What number 1 swordsman in the world? What number 1 swordsman in the sword testing villa? He was actually nothing. It was probably during these difficult years that he suddenly realized one thing. Feng Chenin was with Luo Qingshun because Luo Qingshun was good to him, not because he was good to Luo Qingshun. Chapter 2770. When he saw Feng Ro again, she had already changed from her pink and white dress to a green robe. Her long hair was combed into a high hairpin, making her look mature and steady. In these years, a Mei sect had also changed a lot. Divine Nunhong Xiao was once again killed by her enemies. Feng Ro had no choice but to take on this heavy responsibility. But because she was still young, when she first became the sect leader, the elders of a Mei sect made things difficult for her. After Feng Ro used her own strength to defeat 2 elders, she finally received everyone's approval. The moment she received the sect leader's ribbon, she forcefully suppressed the countless throbbing in her heart that she had felt not so long ago. They probably wouldn't meet again. He probably hated her. Sect leader Feng, please have some tea. Thank you. Feng Ro took the teacup and nodded lightly. She took a sip, leaving behind a faint plum fragrance between her lips. After not seeing each other for a long time, she was a bit nervous. Her palms were sweaty, but she pretended to be calm. Sect leader Feng. Before she could adjust her mood, a cold voice sounded. The tone seemed to be mocking her. Young Master Feng. Feng Ro quickly stood up and said, "Long time no see." The last time they met was not far from Medicine King Valley. On the peak of the valley, he carried the immortal medicine man and jumped off the cliff. She still couldn't forget the way he looked at her and the way he carried her. "It's better if we don't meet." Feng Qinyong sat down on the high seat. His eyes were cold as he looked at her and said, "After all, I don't have any good memories with sect leader Feng." Feng Qinyong's tone was light, but it was like a needle piercing into Feng Ro's heart. She was actually not that strong. Even though she had become very strong in these 3 years, because of Feng Chunyang's words, she had completely collapsed. Back then, I was just... Feng Ro bit her lip. She wanted to explain something, but was interrupted by Feng Chunyang. Sect Leader Feng, if you have something to say, then say it. If you don't, then Medicine King Valley does not welcome people from a Mei sect. He would never forget the things that happened in those years. Those people who wanted to be dignified and wanted her blood, those people who claimed to be righteous and save the world, those ugly faces. He would not forget a single one of them. When Feng Ro heard this, she felt a thump in her heart. She felt like she was suffocating. I was asked to come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Feng Ro took a deep breath and suddenly nodded. She looked at Feng and muttered, "The current emperor is seriously ill. I heard that Hero Longyin, who has been guarding the Valley of the Medicine Masters, can bring the dead back to life with a single silver needle. The people of the Imperial Court cannot come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, so I will pass on the message for them." Feng Chenmong sneered and said, "A silver needle bringing the dead back to life, how laughable. If he could really bring the dead back to life with a single silver needle, how could he watch her die in front of him? Young Master Feng, there's nothing I can do. Moreover, I don't want to have anything to do with the Imperial Court." Feng Chenmu coldly rejected. Sect Leader Feng, please go back. With the expulsion order, Feng Ro naturally knew that this method would not work. In recent years, Amei's position in Jianghu had been declining day by day. Fortunately, the Prime Minister of the Imperial Court had secretly helped them, so they could stand firm in Jianghu. Now, the Emperor was seriously ill and the Imperial Court was in danger. The Prime Minister had asked her to help find a famous doctor. As a woman, how could she know of any famous doctors in the world? The only person she could think of was Feng Chanmu, who had been guarding the Valley of the Medicine Masters for the past few years. Actually, she had her own selfish motives. She still wanted to see him. Chapter 2771. Feng Ro frowned. She took out a jade pendant and a letter from her sleeve and said, "I hope you'll agree to help me after seeing this letter." Feng Chunyong narrowed his eyes. His gaze was cold, and his entire body emitted waves of cold air. It was as if he wanted to freeze everyone around him. He was very familiar with that jade pendant. It was his sister Gu Daixiang's personal item. 3 years ago in the Magnetic Province, after that life and death battle, he had never seen Gu Daixiang again. Or rather, he no longer cared about her whereabouts, whether she lived or died, or whether she could survive. Because in his heart, he regretted bringing Luo Qingshen to the Magnetic Province more than anyone else. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have died. He swore that he would protect her, but in the end, and then, put the things down. If I know how to go, then I'll go. If I don't, then I won't go. Feng Chunyong narrowed his eyes and said, "Sect Master Feng, please go back." Feng Ro's heart felt like it was being blocked by a large stone. He really didn't want to stay with her for even a moment longer. There is a saying in books, if you love someone, then you like to be with them. Even if you work at sunrise and rest at sunset, it will still make you happy. And if you hate someone, even if you don't say it on the surface, you don't want to stay with them for even a moment longer. Once, she thought that if Luo Qingshen and Gu Daixiang didn't exist in this world, then she would be the person closest to Feng Chunyong. After all, he had once saved her when she was in danger. After all, he had once walked a path with her. She would never forget that path. He was by her side. Although his tone was light, he only walked with her. I understand. After an unknown period of time, Feng Ro slowly raised her eyes and said in a tearful voice, "Young Master Feng, I know that after this farewell, we won't meet again. Back then, if Feng Ro had wronged you, and that girl, I'll apologize to you here." She wanted a complete farewell because she knew that they wouldn't meet again. No need. Feng Chunyong looked away and looked at the tear-filled Feng Ro. His eyes did not ripple at all. His tone was still cold and resolute as he looked at her and said, "We don't need it." Couldn't apology get her life back? Since he couldn't apologize, what was the point? There was no need to say meaningless words. They would always be the people he hated, and that would never change. This was truly the last time Feng Ro saw Feng Chenin. Even when she stood at the entrance of the great hall in agony, she did not receive a single word from Feng Chenin to urge her to stay or to show her concern. He was as cold as an iceberg. Even if she died in front of him, he wouldn't even frown. After Feng Ro left, Feng Chun slowly walked forward and picked up the neatly folded letter. The handwriting on this letter belonged to Gu Daixiang. It had been a long time since he had seen her handwriting. There were 4 words written elegantly, sister's last words. Feng Chenmon did not feel any fluctuations in the depths of his heart at all. That was the person he had once risked everything to save. Now, whether she lived or died was no longer important to him. Ridiculous. Inexplicably, he felt that it was incomparably ridiculous. Perhaps it was because he already had the most important person in his heart, and there was no room for anyone else. Or perhaps he would never be able to forgive Gu Daixiang's actions 3 years ago, causing him to lose the most important person in his life. The contents of the letter were very short. There were only a few sentences, but one thing was certain: she was already dead. Chapter 2772. Qinyong, by the time you see this letter, sister will already be gone. Actually, I know you don't care if I live or die, but I've been worried about you all these years. When I found out you went to Medicine King Valley, I felt much more at ease. It's probably because the red snow that fell from magnetic state seeped into my skin, allowing me to live for 3 years. My aging speed is 10 times that of a normal person. If you saw me now, you probably wouldn't believe me, but I'm already a white-haired old man. In these 3 years, I haven't seen him again, but there's never been a moment where I haven't thought of him. I've let you and her down, but if I could go back in time again, I would still make the same decision. I love him, so lowly as dust, not asking for anything in return. Even if I went to the 18th level of hell and never reincarnated, it wouldn't matter. As long as he lives, I can betray everything. I know you miss her, but it's already been so many years. Sister hopes you can let her go, because I know better than anyone else how painful it is to hold on to the impossible. In these years, Feng Ro has always taken care of me. I also know her feelings for you. If you can't give her a response, then promise her to enter the palace. If you can let it go, then treat her well. You're luckier than sister. You've met good people. These days, I've been sleeping a lot, so I can't remember many things. I'm probably going to die soon, so don't come and see me. I've let you down in this life. If there's a next life, I'll definitely repay you and father and that immortal medicine man. July 11th, Gu Daixiang's last words. Feng Chunyong burned the letter on the candle. The faint smoke made his expression a bit hazy. You think you're the most stubborn person in the world, but that's not the case. He laughed coldly, waved his sleeve, and walked towards Medicine Refining Pavilion. Dragon Hero. The 2 guards at the door saw him walk over and hurriedly said, "Progress is normal." He nodded and walked inside. Everyone thought he revived Medicine King Valley because he wanted to stay where the immortal medicine man used to be so he could leave some memories. But in reality, he wanted to refine the medicine man. On the day of the red snow, he escaped and returned. Letting the snow fly, he knelt on the ground and picked up the remaining red snow bit by bit. The strange thing was that the red snow stopped melting after it was put into the pouch. After a long time, it would become granular. However, reds now could not come into contact with fire. If it did, it would be incinerated into nothingness. He studied countless medical skills and almost became the god of medicine who was more powerful than Shen Qingfeng. He built the Alchemy Pavilion and used reds now to refine medicine. Over the years, many people had come to the Medicine King's Valley to seek treatment, and some of them were already beyond saving, so he would ask them if they were willing to become medicine men. However, the chances of success were not high. Those people still had hope of surviving, so they all agreed to Feng Chunyu's suggestion. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed since he had begun to use reds now to refine medicine. He didn't know what the result would be. He only knew that if those red snowflakes were her soul, then he would force her soul to stay. No matter what method he had to use, he had to see her. Even if she was a fool, a malicious spirit, or a monster, it did not matter. Chapter 2773. Inside the imperial palace, the red and green tiles were everywhere. The air was filled with the thick smell of herbs, and there was also the sound of whispering discussions. Where is she? Why did she feel like she didn't have any strength, and there was a faint pain in her heart? How is the princess? The gorgeously dressed empress anxiously asked. This empress feels that her complexion is better than before. Princess Fengqian was the only daughter of the current empress. She was born with a beauty that shamed the moon and the flowers. Unfortunately, the heavens gave her a good face but not a healthy body. She was born with a bad heart, as if she was missing a piece. The older she grew, the worse her body became. Until 3 years ago, when she fainted due to heart pain, the beloved princess never woke up again. In fact, although the current emperor was sick, he wasn't seriously ill. The reason why the prime minister made this announcement was to reorganize the power of the court and also to hope that the expert from Medicine King's Valley would be able to take a look at his precious daughter's illness. Replying to the empress, the princess's heart has been abnormally stable these past few days, as if she is a healthy person. The imperial physician replied, this official believes that the princess will wake up in the next few days. Really? The empress' face was filled with joy. She squatted down and tightly held Fengqian's hand. Qian, you're about to wake up, right? Mother is here. Don't be afraid. Luo Qingshun could clearly feel the people around her talking to her. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open her eyes. The night seemed to be even quieter. She fell into a deep sleep, and the system's voice sounded in her ears. Strange encounter mission. Host, please accept. Damn. Sure enough, she didn't return to the chaotic space. What the hell happened? In the host world, only a few minutes have passed, but in this world, 3 years have passed. What I need to do? Although the empress's power is strong in the harem, the emperor is a sentimental person. Sentimental? Why don't you just say that you're fickle and fickle? The host body will soon wake up. The strange encounter mission is to protect the empress. At the same time, Fengqian received a letter from the person who went to Medicine King's Valley to ask for medicine. He was now the head imperial physician of the court. The contents of the letter referred to a medicinal herb called phoenix bamboo. The emperor had already promised that if Hero Longyin of the Medicine King Valley could wake up the princess, Fengzhu would be offered to him with both hands. The phoenix bamboo on the peak of the snowy mountain took 10 years to mature. Now, there were still 3 years before the 10-year period. He needed the phoenix bamboo for his research. Suddenly, he had a strange feeling, as if there was a strange power constantly pushing him toward the imperial court that had nothing to do with the Jianghu. Feng Rou, Gu Daixiang, and the imperial physician. Should he really make a trip there? In fact, he knew that he would definitely go because he didn't want to wait another 3 years. However, the plan could not keep up with the changes. Fengqian had not yet set off for the imperial palace when Luo Qingshun woke up. Now, she had a new name. Fengqian. Qian, you're finally awake. Luo Qingshun had barely opened her eyes for 10 seconds when she felt herself falling into a warm embrace. The warmth from a mother. Is the princess feeling better? The imperial physician asked. Does her heart still feel uncomfortable? Heart. Chapter 2774. The system had told her that the immortal medicine man's fate was not to save people, but to be reborn. It was just that the original owner could not be reborn for some reason. After she replaced the original owner, the way she was reborn was different. It's all right. Luo Qingshun faintly raised her eyes. It's nothing. After all, she did not have the memories of this body. Luo Qingshun felt that it was better for her to speak less, in case she gave herself away. It was a good thing that the empress did not talk too much with her, because she had just woken up, giving her enough time to rest. But during this rest time, there were always 1 or 2 people who came to disturb her. The next morning, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, her personal maid hurriedly came in. Your Highness, Yu Gugu and Wan Gugu are here to see you. Usually, those who came to see her at this time were either people who cared about her or her enemies. If the emperor was a sentimental person, then the empress's position in the palace was often threatened. These two Gugu, no matter how she thought about it, were not good people. People who had died once were not afraid of death. Moreover, she was no longer a medicine man. There were no fatal things that could take her life anymore. Let them in. Luo Qingquan shrugged, a trace of arrogance in her eyes. Not long after, two people in luxurious clothes came in. The room that was originally filled with the smell of medicine was instantly covered with the smell of rouge and powder. Luo Qingquan coldly smiled, looking forward. It really is Qian Mimi. Feng Yu walked up and spoke first. You've been lying down for 3 years. I almost forgot what you looked like. Feng Yu and Feng Wan are twins, Consort Rong's daughters. Who is Consort Rong? The most favored consort in the palace right now. That was to bring down Consort Rong and be done with it. The system was very speechless, but it had to admit that Luo Qingquan's words were not wrong. Oh, is that so? Luo Qingquan coldly smiled. Whether you remember me or not, I don't care. Feng Yu and Feng Wan didn't expect Luo Qingquan to be so direct. Although she used to be a princess, because of her poor health, her personality was weak, and she was often bullied by people of lower status. For example, Feng Yu and Feng Wan. Princess, don't tell me you're so sick that your brain is damaged. Feng Yu narrowed her phoenix eyes and said, if you're like this, Sir Yin Shu won't like you anymore. F***K. Who was Yin Shu? It was hard to move without memories. Does the host have no memory? What the F***CK? Due to the special nature of the strange encounter mission, the system forgot. In the next 10 seconds, she almost quickly accepted the memories of this person called Feng Qian. Yin Shu was the #1 scholar in Bian City and a popular person by the emperor's side. He was handsome, suave, and elegant. Feng Qian liked him a lot from the first time she saw him, but Yin Shu seemed to be someone who walked through a field of flowers but didn't have a single leaf on him. Coincidentally, this person called Yin Shu was Feng Yu and Feng Wan's cousin. This was also why Feng Qian didn't dare to offend them. Oh, if you don't like him, then don't like him. Luo Qingquan shrugged and said calmly, I don't like him either. You? Feng Yu and Feng Wan were so angry that their faces turned red. Chapter 2775. Is there anything else? Luo Qingquan yawned. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Were all fortuitous encounter missions so useless? It was settled in 2.5 hours. Then could she leave the palace to find Feng Qian? It had been 3 years. Where is Feng Qian now? Host, it was settled so quickly. Or should I keep them for the new year? I still have a lot of things to do. At the same time, in Medicine King Valley. Young master, are you planning to head to Bian City now? A woman in black lowered her head and asked. Her name was Yining, and she was the younger sister of Bian City's #1 scholar, Yin Shu. A year ago, she had a serious illness, and even the imperial physician felt that there was no cure for her. Yin Shu had no choice but to take a gamble and bring her to Medicine King Valley. He didn't know that Feng Qian saved her life with a few silver needles. Since then, Yining decided to stay in Medicine King Valley and stay by Feng Qian's side. She knew that he was desperately trying to revive someone, but she didn't want that person to be revived. Was this considered selfish? It should be in. Feng Qian said indifferently. You could go the same way as me. You don't have to come anymore. His tone was cold, without a trace of warmth. He didn't know what Yining was thinking, and he didn't want to know. Medicine King Valley didn't need women, and he didn't want her to have any misunderstandings when she woke up. Young master, are you chasing me away? Yining was stunned. She bit her lip and said, Can I go to Bian City with you and come back with you? No. Feng Qian's tone was resolute, not giving Yining any hope. She knew that no woman in this world could replace the position of that medicine man in his heart. No one could, but could that medicine man be revived? This was a heaven-defying action, and the chances of success were so low. I understand. She pursed her lips and revealed an ugly smile. I'll go prepare now. It had been 7 days since Feng Qian arrived in Bian City. Luo Qingquan's body hadn't recovered well, and she would occasionally feel her heart palpitate for some unknown reason. The imperial physicians were also helpless and could only wait for Feng Qian to arrive. However, in the eyes of the empress, It was already great news that she could wake up. She was served with good food and drink every day. Luo Qingxin's life could be considered comfortable. Of course, there were still a lot of annoying flies who wanted to cause trouble for her. However, every time, he would come in high spirits and return in disappointment. She felt that it would be very comfortable for her to diss someone without considering the environment. She was even afraid of herself when she really dissed someone. It was another lazy afternoon. While eating an apple, Luo Qingxin asked her personal maid, Yaya, about what had happened in Jianghu in the past 3 years. Yaya had a cousin who worked in the Divine Marquis Mansion. Every day, he would tell her about the matters of the Jianghu. She also found it interesting and memorized it all in her mind. It just so happened that the princess, who had just woken up, liked to listen, so she told her everything one by one. So he went to the Medicine King Valley. Luo Qingxin gave a bitter laugh, a flowing light in her eyes. Is the princess talking about the dragon in hero? Yaya pursed her lips and said, I heard that he already entered the palace to treat the princess' illness. He entered the palace? Luo Qingxin exclaimed. When did this happen? Chapter 2776. Wow, so handsome. He's really good looking. I feel like even Prince Yin Shu isn't even a tenth of his looks. I heard that he's the #1 swordsman in the pugilistic world. I always thought that he must have a ferocious face. I didn't expect him to be so good looking. What's the use of being good looking? I also heard that he has someone he likes. I think it's a medicine man. The emperor, who was sitting on the dragon throne, cleared his throat and said, Hero Longing, can you tell what illness I have? Your Majesty thinks too much. It's easy to have a knot in your heart. Feng muttered, I brought a few medicinal herbs. Take it every other day and you'll recover in a month. The officials standing at the side all had strange expressions. The emperor narrowed his eyes. He had achieved his goal. Thank you, Hero Longing. The emperor continued. I also have a princess who was in a coma for 3 years due to illness. She only woke up a few days ago, but her condition hasn't been good. Please take a look at her. Okay. Feng nodded lightly and left the room. There were many people standing outside Tia Hall, including Feng Yu and Feng Wan. Cousining. Feng Yu waved at Yanning and said, Come here. Yanning was stunned. She didn't expect to meet her 2 cousins. She hurried to them and said, What a coincidence. I haven't seen you in a year, and you've become so beautiful. Hee, thank you for the compliment. Feng Yu giggled and said, Cousining, is that super handsome hero going to treat the princess? Yes. Yanning nodded and said, I heard that the princess was in a coma for 3 years and only woke up recently. Can you tell him not to go? Feng Wan continued, That princess is very ugly. I'm afraid that she'll dirty the hero's eyes. Cousining, you and the hero are so close. Tell him not to go. Yanning frowned slightly. Her impression of that princess instantly became very bad. However, she couldn't change Feng Yu's actions. She could only sigh and shake her head. We can't stop what the prince wants to do. However, I'll remind the prince, we'll go with you later. Feng Yu blinked and said, Get cousin Yin Shu to go as well. If he goes, the princess might not be able to see Hero Longyi. But why don't you let the princess see the young master? Yanning asked in confusion. The young master is only treating her, nothing else. Humph. Feng Yu coldly snorted and said, The 2 of us have been angered half to death by her these past few days. What if the hero is fascinated by her? But didn't you say that she was very ugly? The uglier a person is, the more likely they are to be demons. Feng Yu gritted her teeth and said, Cousin, you have to believe us. Previously, she loved cousin Yin Shu to death. Once she fell ill, she said that she didn't love him anymore. How disgusting. Is it that excessive? Yanning pursed his lips and said, I'll go and talk to young master. If possible, don't get too close to that young master. But it's an imperial edict after all, so it's impossible not to go. Yes. Cousin, quickly go and tell him. Feng Yu revealed a cunning expression and said, It's best if you use a thread to check her pulse. Don't even touch her. That's right. We can't even have skin contact with such a handsome hero. We definitely can't let her get away with it. Chapter 2777. Luo Qingshun changed into a honey-pink dress with soft silver flowers and lilies. With a light layer of rouge and powder, her face didn't seem so pale. Yaya prepared pastries and top-grade Biluakun tea and accompanied her to wait for Feng Qinin's arrival. Although you didn't know why the princess wanted to wait for that person, it was the first time she saw the princess dolling herself up so meticulously. That person must be a very important person. Princess, you look really good today. It's as if you walked out of a painting. Yaya giggled and said, You don't look like someone who's sick at all. You're so good at talking. Do you want a reward? Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and smiled, not forgetting to tease her little servant girl. No, Yaya replied sincerely. Princess, you're really very beautiful. Glib tone. She chuckled and looked at the snowflakes outside the window. Go out and wait for him. She didn't know what it would be like when they met again. She didn't know if he was still the same as before. His clothes were as white as snow, and he had a picturesque face. However, Luo Qingshun didn't expect that the person who appeared in the pavilion after a few minutes wasn't Feng Qining. It was a Yin Shu whom she had only heard of but had never seen in person. He was dressed in a green robe and held a green jade folding fan. He walked forward with a warm smile on his face. Princess, that Sir Yin Shu is here. Yaya seemed to be in a difficult position. Actually, she had already stopped Yin Shu, but in Yin Shu's eyes, that princess called Feng Qian couldn't possibly not want to see her, because he knew that the princess liked her, and he was very clear about it. MHM, Luo Qingshun replied faintly. She looked up and said, Sir Yin Shu, please take a seat. I heard that the princess had woken up, so I should have come to visit earlier. Yin Shu smiled faintly. But I've been busy with work recently, so I came so late. Luo Qingshun took a sip of tea and said, It's all right. Yin Shu was stunned. He probably didn't expect Luo Qingshun to be so cold. After all, she was very excited to see him 3 years ago. Feng Qiansheng was beautiful, but because she had him in her heart for a long time, he did not care much about it. This was his personality. The easier it was to obtain something, the less he felt the need to cherish it. However, he was not used to the sudden coldness. He came to see her today because he was asked by his 2 cousins, but he didn't know the specific reason for his visit. How do you feel, princess? Yin Shu said with concern. The temperature is dropping these few days. You should pay more attention to keeping warm and resting. This is good for your heart. Sure enough, scumbags always like to say warm and heart-palpitating words. However, these words could only fool a little girl like Feng Qian at most. It was impossible to fool an old monster like her. Thank you. It was still a polite and calm word, without a trace of emotion. The atmosphere in the hall instantly became awkward, and this awkwardness caused Yin Shu's smile to freeze on his face. However, Luo Qingshun appeared to be very happy. After all, torturing a scumbag could make one feel good both physically and mentally. Yin Shu's lips twitched as he smiled. I've also studied some medical skills these few years. If you don't mind, I could take a look at you. Oh, Luo Qingshun replied coldly and continued, I don't want to. Chapter 2778. The moment his voice fell, Feng Yu and Feng Wan's voices came from the door. They chattered nonstop like sparrows. Their voices were so loud that even Luo Qingshun could hear them clearly. Great hero, your martial arts are so good and your medical skills are so good. Why don't you consider becoming an official in the palace? That's right. Although the Jianghu is very free and beautiful, the palace is very stable. Everyone can be together and there are no disputes. Feng Qinin's deep eyes were filled with coldness from beginning to end. He frowned a bit impatiently, and Yining immediately understood. Shu. She made a hand gesture and said, Don't say any more. Although she had only been by Feng Qinin's side for a year, she was very clear about his personality. Feng Yu and Feng Wan wanted to show off too much, which made him feel especially annoyed. Cousin Ing, what's wrong? Feng Yu pouted and said, We're also Dragon Roar hero, so let's talk a bit. The more you talk in the Jianghu, the faster you die. He narrowed his cold eyes and said, Do you understand? The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped, as if the air had condensed into two. Along with the falling snowflakes, Feng Yu and Feng Wan's hearts suddenly trembled. They looked at each other and decided not to talk for now. Once they entered the pavilion, they could properly watch the so-called princess make a fool of herself. This must be Dragon Roar Hero. Ia walked out holding an umbrella and respectfully bowed. The princess invites you in. The others don't need to enter. Yanning frowned and said, I am the young master's personal maid. I wonder if you can make an exception and let me in as well. This is the princess's order. As a maid, I cannot disobey. Ia glanced at Yanning and said, there are rules in the palace. Hearing this, Feng Yu pouted and said with a displeased expression, this Feng Qian is doing this on purpose. She must know that young Master Feng is good-looking and purposely wants a chance to be alone with him. Right. Feng Wan agreed. This person is really dark. Her thoughts are so heavy. Not everyone in this world is as dark as you. Luo Qingshun put on a fluffy coat and came forward with a snow-white umbrella. Since you want to accompany me to see the doctor, then let's go to the Imperial Garden and enjoy the snow while we take a look. At that time, the #1 scholar of Bian City stood beside her. His green robes were stained with snow, and beneath his elegant appearance, there was an awkward expression on his face. And she and he, amidst the swirling white snow, the two pairs of eyes looked at each other. His starry eyes narrowed as he focused on the woman in front of him. Gorgeous clothes, noble status, indifferent eyebrows, seemingly carrying a sense of familiarity that came from time and space. Yo, it seems like the princess has an appointment today. Feng Yu looked at her with a triumphant smile and said, moreover, princess looks so good. You don't look like someone who is sick at all. What does that have to do with you? Luo Qingshun narrowed her cold eyes and spoke softly. Didn't consort Rong teach you to salute the princess? When she said this, her gaze was still on Feng Qian and did not move away for even a second. He still hadn't changed. His face was as white as snow, his eyes were indifferent, and his eyes were unfathomable. She didn't know if it was because the snow was too heavy or if it was because of the wind. Chapter 2779. Feng Yu's face flushed red instantly, and she felt humiliated in front of her Prince Charming. But when she wanted to say something, she realized that her words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a single word. Aya, don't quarrel. Yanshu hurriedly stepped out to smooth things over. I just came to see the princess, nothing else. Cousin, Feng Yu said angrily, why are you speaking up for her? In the past, Feng Shu had never paid much attention to Feng Qian, so why was she on Feng Qian's side today? Yanshu frowned and said, I'm just speaking the truth. Moreover, you shouldn't be so impudent when speaking to the princess. People are like this. Once someone who was passionate towards you suddenly became cold towards you, you would especially want to get that person's attention. Yanshu was like this. He didn't know why Luo Qingshun was so cold towards him, but this feeling made him very uncomfortable. Moreover, he was born conceited. Many people liked him, but he had never met anyone who didn't like him. Are you done talking? Luo Qingshun listened to their nagging, and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. I have a bad temper. Don't provoke me. For some reason, Feng Yu and Feng Wan had goosebumps all over their bodies when they heard Luo Qingshun's words. Although Luo Qingshun's voice was neither loud nor soft, it made them feel unusually cold. If the princess doesn't need to see a doctor, young master won't stay here any longer. Ying also didn't know why she was so brave. Perhaps it was because she didn't have a good first impression of this princess after hearing what her cousins said, or perhaps it was because Feng Qian was too focused on her. She felt very uncomfortable for some reason. Even though it was very inappropriate to say such things in such a situation, she still said it. Young master, Luo Qingshun scoffed. I didn't expect Hero Dragon Ian to be so happy these few years. It's only been 3 years, and Feng Qian already has a young lady by his side. Wasn't there a rumor in the pugilistic world that he missed her a lot? Could it be that it was all a lie? The wind and snow are too heavy. I'd better go back and check the princess's pulse. He had a very strange feeling, as if his heart which had been sealed for a long time, had an inexplicable ripple the moment he saw her eyes. "I don't want it." Luo Qingxun nodded slightly. She looked at him proudly and said, "Young Master Feng, let's go together. The winter suite in the Imperial Garden is very beautiful." His brows trembled slightly, and his heart, which had been sealed for a long time, couldn't help but violently tremble. It was a feeling of suffocation. His eyes flashed back to the street, where she had held his hand with a proud look on her face. At that time, he couldn't do anything to her. And now, looking at the princess in front of him, he actually couldn't bear to reject her request. "All right." He nodded. Although his tone was light, there was no coldness in it. Feng Qin's reply stunned the surrounding people. After all, they were used to seeing him as cold as ice and as taciturn as if his words were gold. Now that he suddenly used this kind of slightly compromising tone, it was hard for them to not feel disbelief. "Young master." Yining was completely stunned. She had never seen Feng Chen like this in the past year. That was a kind of probing gaze on a woman's body. In the past year, many people had come because of Feng Chenyin's reputation, but none of them had entered his eyes. Chapter 2780. I heard that young Master Feng has stopped roaming the pugilistic world these past few years and is living in the Medicine King Valley to enjoy his old age. Luo Qingxun walked beside him with an unconcealable smile on her lips. His body still had that familiar aura, as if standing beside him gave her a sense of security. He nodded slightly, and a touch of gentleness flashed across his eyes. It had been 3 years, and this was the first time she felt so happy. That kind of happiness spontaneously rose from the bottom of her heart, and she couldn't stop it. Just an in. Feng Chenin turned and looked at her with a probing gaze. "I'm old and want to stay in a place where I feel safe." The Medicine King Valley is the place where young master feels safe. Yining, who was following behind them, interrupted, "Because the person young master values the most is there." As expected, that so-called princess was just as her 2 cousins had said. She was a person who especially liked to play tricks. She wanted to pounce on good-looking people whenever she saw one. She had no sense of shame. Cough, cough. Feng Yu, who was also following behind them, couldn't help but reply. Some people just like to change their minds. After saying this, she didn't forget to look at Yin Shu, who was walking beside her. Back then, Feng Qian liked Yin Shu so much. Even if her health wasn't good, she would secretly read Yin Shu. And now, she had just woken up and was already changing her mind. The person young Master Feng values the most? Luo Qingxun's lips curled up. Do you still value her now? That was a soft spot in his heart that couldn't be touched. Yining knew this, so she specially brought it up. Because Feng Chenin didn't allow anyone to mention anything about her, or even her name. She didn't know that Feng Chenin was only stunned for a moment. He looked at her for a long time before saying, "She is the person I value the most in my life." The people behind them, who didn't know the situation, all looked confused. Yin Ying's eyes carried a trace of success. In the past, she was never willing to mention Luo Qingxun because she knew that no one in this world could replace her position in Feng Chenin's heart. But if she could use her name to chase away those orioles and swallows, she didn't mind mentioning her. However, what she didn't expect was that not only did Feng Chenin not show a very cold expression, he even responded to the princess. "That's really great." Snow plum blossom petals fell one by one. Between them, there was a hint of sadness. In the next second, she felt her heart palpitate, and her right hand suddenly covered her chest. Feng Chenin immediately grabbed her hand and frowned. "What's wrong?" "Young master," she. Yining, Feng Yu, and Feng Wang were all shocked. They wanted to say something, but Luo Qingxun's words were blown away by the snow. "Do you miss her?" Luo Qingxun pursed her lips, with tears in her eyes. It wasn't that she was sad, but the joy of reuniting after so long made her heart tremble uncontrollably. Feng muttered to himself as he frowned. He looked at her gaze more and more attentively. After a long while, he actually only said one sentence. "I'd better send the princess back and check her pulse." The snowstorm was too strong. Looking at her pale face, he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. It was clearly the first time they met. So why did he always have this strange feeling? Silent and never-ending. Chapter 2781. Snowflakes gently fell. She nodded slightly and looked at his cold face. Her brows trembled. Feng Qinin's slender fingers suddenly trembled. His deep eyes clearly reflected her watery eyes. Some people could look at each other for 10,000 years. The moment they looked at each other deeply, their minds would be filled with the things that happened when they were together. What are you talking about? Yanning looked at the picturesque scene in front of her. She was displeased and wanted to immediately interrupt. Little did she know, the surrounding wind suddenly became stronger. Icebergs of 10,000 layers appeared around them. This was a skill that had not been seen in Jianghu for a long time. Ever since the red snow in magnetic state 3 years ago, mountains and rivers of ashes seemed to have been sealed away by Feng Qining. He had never used it again, because he loved someone deeply in order to remember someone. Young master, the ice and snow seemed to have been sealed away at this moment. He raised his right hand slightly, as if he wanted to see her face clearly. No matter how unbelievable it was, at this moment, he wanted to walk with his feelings, walk with his heart. Qing, master. Before the word Chun fell, she was caught off guard and threw herself into his embrace. Her hands tightly gripped his sleeves. Master, 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 master. Feng Qining. Amen, I'm here. His tone was very soft and his voice trembled slightly. He slowly raised his head and then suddenly hugged her. It seemed like he had many things to say, as if he had many questions to ask. But at this moment, there was only one thing he wanted to do, and that was to tightly hug her. Not asking about her identity, not asking about her reason, not asking about where she was in the world. Mountains and rivers of ashes melted layer by layer in the ice and snow. He was dressed in white and tightly hugged a young girl in the snow. His eyes were blurred, but there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Was the heavens favoring him? Originally, he had come to the palace to take a medicinal ingredient for refining medicine. But by a free combination of factors, he had met her. The funny thing was that without any evidence, he did not have a trace of doubt. This was a very strange feeling. He thought, no one in this world would understand. Hiss! At this moment, the onlookers who saw them hugging each other all sucked in a cold breath. The #1 swordsman of Jianghu, the current imperial princess. The two people who had never had anything to do with each other suddenly hugged each other. It was really inconceivable. Young master, oh my God, what happened? Am I seeing things? Luo Qingshun didn't seem to care about what they were saying. Time seemed to turn back to 3 years ago. They were still in the mansion in magnetic state. He had also hugged her tightly like this, using all the strength in his body and ignoring everything else. But in the end, he still didn't protect her and left her behind. Now, the heavens had given him another chance. Meeting her again in the vast sea of people, one look, one action, one chuckle 10,000 years. He had imagined countless scenarios of meeting her in the mortal world, in heaven, and in hell. She was a medicine man. She was a deity. She was a malicious spirit. He had dreamed countless times that she would never come back. The red specks left behind by the red snow didn't mean anything at all. She would never come back, leaving him alone forever. However, there was one more thing that he had never said to her. Luo Qingshun. This seemed to be the first time Feng Qining had called her by her full name. There was a serious tremble in his voice. Ah! She was stunned for a moment. She slightly nodded and said, Master, why? Chapter 2782. This was something he had never said, but that did not mean he did not love her. Some people's love, once sealed away in their hearts for a long time, would fester and begin to change. Then they would go crazy. Feng Qining was probably this kind of person. On the surface, he was always as indifferent as dust, but in the depths of his heart, there was a terrifying possessiveness. In the past, he did not care about people, but once he did, he became scarier than anyone else. In this world, there was no one who was always indifferent. It was just that some people could not see through their own hearts. In less than a day, the news of the kiss in the imperial garden had spread throughout the entire palace. The emperor was overjoyed. Feng Qining, who had always been proud and arrogant, was not only skilled in martial arts, but also skilled in medicine, was interested in his princess. This was a great thing for the entire court. This meant that if possible, Feng Chenin could leave the Jianghu and work for the court. The two sisters, Feng Yu and Feng Wan, spread many unpleasant rumors to the outside world and were caught red-handed by the emperor. Without another word, the emperor grounded them and told them to reflect on their mistakes. On the surface, it was to reflect, but in reality, it was to weaken the power of Consort Rong's faction. As the saying goes, when a person achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. When one person is punished, the entire family suffers. Originally, Consort Rong was quite pleasing to the emperor's eyes. However, because of her two daughters, the emperor's impression of her plummeted. Her life was basically over. As for Feng Chenin, he did not return to the Medicine King Valley. Instead, he accepted the emperor's suggestion and stayed in the palace to accompany the princess and treat her illness. He bestowed Feng Chenin with an imperial sword and used the highest honor to confirm his position in the palace. Even if some people did not like his sudden appearance, they could not say anything. After all, their martial arts were not as high as his, their medical skills were not as good, and their parents were not as good. Why did they have to talk about power? It was another lazy afternoon. Luo Qingshun sat on the soft couch and secretly ate ice grapes. Just as she ate one, Feng Chenin suddenly appeared beside her, scaring her half to death. "Master, how come you don't make a sound when you walk?" Luo Qingshun touched her heart and said, "My heart is not good. You almost scare me to death. When have I ever made any sound when I walked?" Feng muttered to himself as he placed the grapes to the side. "You're eating something cold when your heart isn't well. Don't tell me you're trying to anger me to death." Even after 3 years, even with a new identity, she had not changed at all. Other than being arrogant, there was nothing else to worry about. "Wow, Master, you won't let me eat grapes." Feng Chun raised his right hand and flicked her forehead. "I won't let you eat iced grapes." Luo Qingchen heard this and muttered in a small voice, "Ice is delicious. What did you say?" "Ah." Luo Qingchen's eyes trembled. She rolled her eyes and said, "I say, Master, let's go out of the palace and play." "Play what?" Feng Chun frowned and said, "Do you know why your heart is not good?" Luo Qingchen pouted and said, "How would I know? I'm not Feng Qian. What did her poor health have to do with her? It was not because of her. It must be because Qing Chun likes to play too much." Feng Chun gently patted her head and said, "That's why her body is not good." Chapter 2783. She didn't know why she had this feeling, but it was very similar. Because your fate and Feng Qian's fate are the same. Feng Chunyong narrowed his eyes and said, "Do you still remember what Sect Master Shen said? Your fate is not to save people." He was very glad that her use was not just to save people. He was also very grateful to Shun Qingfeng. He was grateful to him for creating her. That was why he was able to meet her and have her. I didn't know what Sect Master Shen meant before, but now I know. Luo Qingchun waved her hand, indicating for Feng Chunyong to sit down. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. After he sat down beside her, she leaned on his shoulder and continued, "Although I don't completely understand what the connection is, I am sure that as long as I am by Master's side in the future, everything else is not important." "Yu." Feng Qinyong hugged her and said, "Don't worry, as long as you take your medicine on time, that feeling of palpitations will disappear very quickly." "That powerful?" Luo Qingchen blinked and said, "I didn't think that Master didn't learn anything else in these 3 years, but his medical skills have improved quite a bit. Do you know why?" He casually twirled her hair, his eyes filled with gentleness. "Why?" Luo Qingchun turned and looked at him with a puzzled expression. In the past, although Feng Qinyong's martial arts were the best in the world, his medical skills were probably not that good. In these 3 short years, what exactly did he experience to become like this? Because he paused, as if remembering everything that had happened in the past. He found a method to refine medicine, returned to Medicine King Valley, and used an almost impossible method to get her back. He desperately desperately wanted her to come back. And now, she had already come back. Those unbearable, dark days, there was no need to tell her about them. It's nothing, as long as I can treat your illness. Feng Qinyong took the medicine that had just been delivered and said, "It's not hot anymore. Just because it's not hot doesn't mean it tastes good." Luo Qingshan looked at the black medicine and pursed her lips, a look of disdain on her face. Feng Qinyong raised his eyebrows and said, "It should be pretty good." Feng Qinyong did not lie to her. The medicine really did taste good, with a slightly sweet taste. However, after drinking it, he felt extremely sleepy. He leaned against Feng Qinyong and fell asleep. In her dreams, he seemed to have carefully picked her up and placed her on the bed. After covering her with the blanket, he gently planted a kiss between her brows. "Hero Dragon Man," Yi called out to him softly, and he hurriedly turned around with a shu expression. He was afraid that someone would wake her up and that she wouldn't sleep well enough. He left the edge of the bed and walked down the stairs a few steps before asking in a low voice, "What's wrong?" "Miss Yining is waiting for you outside the attic. She seems to have something important to tell you." After all, Yining had entered the palace with Feng Qinyong. Logically speaking, this should be reported. He replied faintly, "Got it." She hadn't seen him for many days. He hadn't changed at all. He was still dressed in white and looked as good as ever. However, the pair of eyes that had been filled with darkness had become as bright as the stars. "Young master," Yining took a deep breath and mustered all his courage to rush towards him, wanting to hug him. Little did he know that Feng Qinyong dodged to the side, causing Yining to miss. Chapter 2784. Yining froze on the spot. Her eyes were filled with panic, but there was more sadness. "I don't understand." She took a deep breath and said the words that confused her the most. She didn't understand. She really didn't understand. If Feng Qinyong was so fond of the immortal medicine man who had already died, then she could understand. But now, he had only met this princess once. Why did he spoil her so much? This was completely different from the Feng Qinyong she knew and interacted with. "It has nothing to do with you." His tone was extremely cold. He didn't want to say anything else, nor did he need to explain anything to her. "Sir, you must have been affected by witchcraft. I will definitely find out the truth. I won't let that princess." In the next second, Yining felt her neck tighten. She found it difficult to breathe. Feng Qinyong had already reached her side as fast as he could and grabbed her neck. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Prin Prin." Yining spat out a word with difficulty. Her face instantly turned red. "Everyone who wanted to hurt her in this world is dead." Feng Qinyong's cold eyes narrowed. He said word by word, "If you really want to die, I can fulfill your wish." "I don't." Yining seemed to be unable to speak. Feng Qinyong's grip was very strong. She felt like he was really going to choke her to death. Her vision turned black and white. His eyes were filled with killing intent. In the next second, Feng Qinyong snorted and let go of his right hand. Yining couldn't stand and fell to the ground. She felt like she was already standing outside the gates of hell. If she took a step forward, she would be able to see the king of hell. She didn't know why, but at the moment of life and death, it seemed like other than life, nothing else was important. No one could hurt her. No one. This was the last thing Feng Qinyong said to Yining. From that day onwards, he never saw Yining again. In reality, although he had focused on researching the medicine man to revive her in these 3 years, he had done other things as well. The enemy that destroyed the Luo family back then was related to the elder of the sword trial villa to a certain extent. He once wielded the fallen maple sword and killed all the people who participated in it. At that time, he even met Qi Tiange, who was struggling at death's door. His hair was white, and his eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. When he saw Feng Qinyong, he wanted to fight with him, but he couldn't even stand. The two hated each other. If Qi Tiange had the medicine man, then he would have cultivated the soul release Gu scripture and become a #1 person in the martial arts world. And Feng muttered to himself, if it wasn't for Qi Tiange forcing him, he wouldn't have lost Luo Qingchun. He wouldn't have lost the person he loved the most. In the end, Feng Qinyong didn't kill Qi Tiange, because he felt that to him, death was more painful than living. He deserved it. In the spring of March, under Feng Qinyong's care, Luo Qingchun felt that her body was much better. She would not feel her heart palpitate when she was sleeping soundly in the middle of the night. She would often boast that he was a genius doctor and that she would not be afraid of falling sick in the future. Every time this happened, Feng Chenin would say, "If you get sick, you can't eat snacks for a month. Try it." Far away from the martial arts world, Luo Qingchun felt that Feng Chenin had become a completely different person after staying in the palace. Chapter 2785. Although the palace maids peeked, they didn't dare to overstep their boundaries. After all, Feng Chenin was the future son-in-law of the current princess. In addition, he was deeply liked by the emperor. He was someone who could be seen from afar and couldn't be touched. As for the emperor's other favorite, Yin Shu, during the banquet of civil and military strategy. His military strategy naturally couldn't compare to Feng Chenin's, but his civil skills couldn't compare either. Over time, he lost his status as a favorite in the emperor's heart. In addition, the situation of Consort Rong and his two cousins also affected his career. Moreover, the current emperor was someone who liked the new and hated the old. It was like this for the concubines, and even more so for the scholars. Not long after, Yin Shu disappeared from the palace. As for Luo Qingchun and Feng Chenin, the current emperor held a grand wedding for them. Other than the court officials, there were also many people from the pugilistic world. Among them, Feng Rou was also present. After parting last time, Feng Rou thought that it would be the last time they would see each other and that they would never see each other again. But she didn't expect that Feng Chenin wouldn't leave after entering the palace. Instead, he married the princess deep in the palace. No matter what, she couldn't believe this truth. Even if she didn't want to see him get married, she still decided to go to their wedding. At the wedding ceremony, Luo Qingchun saw Feng Rou. She looked at her with confusion. She and Feng Chenin drank cross-cupped wine, but she couldn't see any clues. She only knew that Feng Chenin's eyes were very doting and dangerous. At the table, while Luo Qingchun and the emperor were toasting, Feng Rou toasted Feng Chenin and said, "I never thought that Hero Long Yin would marry a princess." In her eyes, his love was an obsession. His obsession was with the immortal medicine man for a lifetime. But she didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, in June, he would marry the princess of the Celestial Empire. Feng Chenin didn't respond. Instead, he slowly put down his wine cup and walked towards Luo Qingchun. Although he knew that she had a good alcohol tolerance, he still didn't want her to drink too much. "Master," she muttered softly. She wanted to snatch back her wine cup, but he hugged her waist. She then whispered in his ear, "I'll have to call you husband in the future." Luo Qingchun pursed her lips and smiled. She looked away and blushed slightly. Feng Rou looked at Feng's extremely gentle appearance and was unconsciously stunned. She had never seen this kind of wind before. Maybe he wasn't as infatuated as he thought. Maybe he had already fallen in love with someone else. However, it wasn't her. However, she didn't have a chance. Feng Muma asked Yaya to send Luo Qingchun back to her room. After he had sent off the guests, they would consummate their marriage. Before leaving, Luo Qingchun asked, "What did Feng Rou say to you?" "She's probably very surprised by my change of heart." Feng Chen muttered to himself with a smile. He gently lifted his right hand to tuck away the loose strands of hair in front of her forehead, his eyes filled with tenderness. Luo Qingchun nodded slightly, her red lips softly saying, "Then why didn't you tell her?" He laughed lightly and said, "If I didn't find you, I would only want to spend my life peacefully with you. I would want to kill her and then destroy her May. With this kind of relationship, why would I tell her anything?" In Feng Chunyin's eyes, Feng Rou was already an enemy that wasn't even comparable to a stranger. Chapter 2786. Luo Qingchun had never thought that Feng Chenin's impression of Feng Rou was like this. But it had to be said that his words made her very happy inside. After the wedding banquet ended, Feng Chenin personally sent off a guest. Feng Rou looked at him for a long time. In the end, she proudly raised her head. With a wave of her blue robe, she looked at Feng Chenin and said, "So the so-called number one swordsman in love is nothing more than this." As her voice fell, she turned and left the hall. Feng Chenin only faintly narrowed his eyes. From beginning to end, he did not say a word to her. He roughly knew why she had come, but the happiness that belonged to him, he would keep it to himself. He did not care about what other people thought or what other people thought. Red silk hung high, the wedding night candles. He kissed her forehead and said with a smile, "Little disciple, you're about to grow up." 1 year after the Phoenix Emperor, the previous emperor had passed away, and the new emperor had succeeded the throne. Luo Qingchen and Feng Chenin had been married for 7 years. Because of the great change in power in the court, they decided to not get involved in this mess. They gave up all their status and glory and returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The new emperor was overjoyed. He rewarded them with 10,000 taels of gold and 1,000 bolts of silk and satin, and sent them back to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Why was the new emperor so happy? Because he was very wary of Feng Chenin's ability. When the previous emperor had been on the throne, all of Feng Chenin's plans had been adopted by the previous emperor, and each time he had done it with half the effort. Such a capable and talented person could almost shake his throne. In the eyes of the new emperor, Feng Chenin was like a bomb filled with poppies. Charming but dangerous, Luo Qingchen and Feng Chenin naturally knew this. In order to prevent the new emperor from thinking of ways to deal with them, they decided to leave first. In any case, they were originally people of the Jianghu. They had gotten used to the peaceful days in the palace. It was time to come out and explore the Jianghu. From Bian City to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, many things had happened along the way. There were evil men who bullied good women, black shops that ate human flesh, and villages that were plagued by plagues. Every time they walked, they left behind footprints that belonged to them. They did not keep anyone in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Many of the medicine people that Feng Chenin had refined in the early years could already open their eyes and enjoy their new lives. Although it was less than 10 years, although it was very short to them, it was still a rebirth, a complete rebirth. Time passed year after year. Every year, they would leave the valley and travel the entire Jianghu. Luo Qingchen's favorite thing to do was to help when she saw injustice. Perhaps she wasn't that kind of person, but at least in this Jianghu, she wanted to be such a person. Feng Chenin always liked to stand behind her, watching her sword dance, watching her play, watching her mischievous, watching her laugh. Luo Qingchen would never know that in the Jianghu that she loved, he only loved her. The people of Jianghu respected them greatly, but this kind of respect could not last forever. Living in Jianghu, accidents were bound to happen. There were also disputes that could not be avoided. For example, 10 years later, another immortal medicine man appeared, and once again set off a dispute in Jianghu. Sister Qing, Brother Feng, hand me over. A beautiful woman wearing a light white silk dress knelt in front of them, tears flickering in her eyes. Luo Qingchen helped her up and nodded slightly. I will protect you. Don't be afraid. No. Feng Chenin narrowed his eyes and smiled. It should be me who will protect you. She held the Phoenix Dance sword in her hand, and he held the fallen maple sword in his hand. At the entrance of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, they were waiting for a bloody battle. No matter what, whether it was life or death, he would protect her. Chapter 2787. That was the answer that came from the depths of my soul. I told myself again and again that the one I loved was you. Feng mused, what was love in this world? It was something that made people pledge their lives to each other. In fact, at the very beginning, I didn't know what love was. I only knew that for the love that she believed in, my sister didn't hesitate to leave the Tianshui alley that protected her and went to the side of that fickle man. I had heard of Qi Tianji's name long ago. Before I learned my father's consummate skill, ashes of mountains and rivers, I had a match with him. At that time, I was slightly better. I could feel his obsession with martial arts and his dedication to his consummate skill, but at that time, he was still a righteous person. Or perhaps, when he saved Gu Daixiang, he was still a righteous person. But later, for some reason, he changed. Of course, at that time, I didn't know that Gu Daixiang was my sister. I also didn't know that my father was a man of Jianghu who had such a powerful consummate skill. It wasn't until Gu Daishiang got poisoned by the 7-insect, 7-flower poison for him that I learned that I had a sister and a father. It was probably because of my sister's dedication that she became so lowly that I was so indifferent to this word. Until I met that little girl in the wind and snow, her clear eyes didn't make my heart flutter. I just couldn't help but take a few more glances. It started with her appearance, and finally what? I don't know. It was probably because she smiled faintly and made a deal with me. It was probably because she used a coquettish tone to call me master. At that moment, I suddenly felt that I was a bit despicable. I was a magnanimous person, but I actually felt despicable. Because she was right. My purpose for coming to find her was no different from other people. I just wanted her blood. But the strange thing was that there were many people who wanted her blood. There must be many people who didn't want her life, but just wanted her blood like me. However, the strange thing was that she only wanted to make a deal with me. Why did she trust me so much? Was she not afraid that I had ulterior motives? At that time, I thought so in my heart. I had doubts, I didn't understand, but I told myself that I must protect her. Otherwise, I would fail the little girl's trust in me. Until he said that if someone killed me, she would collect my corpse and let him protect her. This was probably the first time my heart throbbed inexplicably. This feeling is very strange. If I hadn't met her, perhaps I wouldn't have had this feeling in my life. That feeling of unwillingness and unhappiness had to be forcibly suppressed. Then, he calmly told her that this was fine. Perhaps it was from that time that the so-called love took root in my heart and grew rapidly in an unknown corner, until I can no longer pretend that I don't see it, until my heart has already admitted it. At and near the Medicine King's Valley, I began to teach her how to navigate the Jianghu. After all, she had been under Shen Qingfeng's protection for many years, so there were some things that she might not know. But I found that although she looked innocent and harmless on the surface, she was actually very meticulous. He suddenly realized that a medicine man could have such a brilliant moment. Looking at her smiling face, I had a feeling of wanting to stay with her forever and never leave her side. However, this kind of brilliance could never compare to when she was wielding a long sword and subduing divine Nun Hongxiu in a few moves. Although her internal energy was passed on to her by Shen Qingfeng, who taught her martial arts. Chapter 2788. In the wind and snow, her chuckle stunned me. I even forgot to avoid the falling snowflakes. Fortunately, no one discovered my existence. I originally wanted to wait for the people of Amei to leave before showing myself. Or maybe she could kill them. These so-called righteous sects were very unbearable in my heart. They did dirty things in the name of justice, but they didn't mean what they said. At first, my impression of Feng Ro was that of a stranger. I felt that her chivalry was good, and she was a heroine who traveled to Jianghu. But when I met her again, she was just a person who only listened to her master and couldn't distinguish good from evil. In comparison, this was what I liked about the little girl. At least, she dared to love and hate. At least, she was honest enough. That battle could be considered hardy. She and I defeated countless experts of the Jianghu. Among them, the elders of the sword-testing villa were experts among experts. I looked at the faces of those people, and my heart was as clear as a mirror. Although I needed her blood to save my sister, we were different. Under the valley, she leaned against me and slept. I looked at the wound on the back of her hand for a long time, worried. The medicine man was afraid of fire. I wasn't the only one who knew this. There were countless books in the sword-testing villa. With Qi Tinga's personality, he would definitely investigate about her. I was worried and afraid. I was afraid that I couldn't protect her. In fact, at that moment, a terrifying thought flashed through my mind. What if I didn't save my sister? What if I didn't go to Magnetic Province? Everyone in the Jianghu should know that I took this immortal medicine man to save my sister. Thus, I knew better than anyone how dangerous Magnetic Province was. I thought of everything. How to escape, how to protect the two of them, how to die together. But I didn't expect to be betrayed by my sister. She betrayed me for a man who didn't care about her life. I thought that sitting and drinking tea was her blessing for our relationship. Although I didn't say those words to her, I knew she understood. But my sister didn't care about her life. She was so selfish that as long as Chi Tiange could survive, she didn't care how many innocent people died in this world. At that moment, I regretted it so much. I felt so stupid. Was it because I didn't see her place in my heart? Or I didn't see my own heart clearly? That red snow, from beginning to end, tore my heart apart. For the next 3 years, I couldn't even sleep well. He did not know the meaning of life, and the only obsession in his heart was to use the bright red medicine man to refine medicine. I was waiting for a miracle, waiting for her to appear again. It was probably this miracle that kept me alive. No one could understand my feelings when we met again. The excitement of reuniting after a long time was as inspiring as the pain of separation. Thank God. Thank you for meeting me again. Thank you for being by my side. Those who rarely open their mouths to say that they like you want every word to end and want to write down their feelings on paper. Little disciple, I'm not good at expressing myself, but I will always be faithful to you. I will always be moved by you. Even if there is no red snow filling the sky, even if there is no wind, even if there is no return date, I still like you. In this life, I will never give up. Chapter 2789. Returning to the primal chaos space, she felt an indescribable sadness in her heart. It was probably because the time she spent with Feng Chenin was too short. Although she was very happy, she still couldn't bear to part with him. Many years later, because of the appearance of the immortal medicine man in Jianghu, a new round of Jianghu grudges arose. Medicine King Valley once again became the target of public criticism. She and Feng Chenin were unwilling to hand over the new immortal medicine man. They did their best to protect her, blocking the attacks of both the black and white sides. Everyone had their own destiny. Without her consent, no one could use her blood to do anything. Whether it was saving or harming people, it was not allowed. But in this world, there were many people with bad values, just like how they would always think in their hearts, I only need a little bit of your blood to save my loved ones. Why don't you give it to me? You are so selfish. But they would never reflect on themselves. When they used that kind of despicable tone to ask for things from strangers, it was already a very selfish behavior. In that battle, they killed many people, whether it was righteous or evil. As long as they came to Medicine King Valley to steal the medicine man, they would kill them. Blood filled the air again. In the end, they just hugged each other. The immortal medicine man was also by their side. No one dared to move forward, but Feng Chenin used all of his internal strength, risking his life to protect them. He said he would protect them. Unless he died, no one could harm them. When Feng Chenin was about to die, the young girl who became immortal wanted to use her blood to save him. But Luo Qingshun gently shook her head and said, It's no use. Your blood can save many people, but can't save him. Big Sister Qing, how do you know? I am very powerful. Luo Qingshun gently shook her head again. She spat out a mouthful of blood. I know why he did this, and I also know why he did this. Luo Qingshun leaned against his chest and closed her eyes as she said, Master, thank you for being with me, even in death. In fact, she was very clear that she didn't have much time left. Although Feng Chenin didn't tell her, she knew in her heart. The original host's heart was very weak. Feng Chenin only used medicine to control it, but in the end, he didn't treat the root cause. He wanted to die with her, so he chose to face the pursuit of countless martial artists. Everything he did was because he didn't want her to know that he wanted to die with her. What a foolish master. The following is a summary of the data for this mission. Please read it carefully. Name, Luo Qingshun Space. Seeking love in Jianghu. The medicine man without a heart. Mission completion rate, 80%. Mission not completed. Experience points not increased. There are currently 5 items in the express storage. April 5th Exquisite Ring. 9-section Moon Whip. Phoenix Dance Sword. Universal Medicine Box. Permanent ability. Space-time freeze level 6 permanent ability. Teleportation LV 4 permanent ability. Telekinesis level 1 exchange points. 6,000 base points. 40 host. The basic panel of the 43rd mission is below. In the next second, The image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission rating S. Experience gained 500. Female lead. Luo Qingchen male lead. Mu Lichuan supporting female, lead number 1. Lan Ji supporting female number 2. Lan Ting supporting male lead. Su Chun. Chapter 2790. The memories of the original owner, as well as other people's memories, came to her layer by layer. She didn't know if the original owner's love was deep or if she loved the wrong person. She had a cheerful personality and lived a rich life. Even when she received her memories, she couldn't help but smile. A girl who was as bright as the sun and very comfortable. Unfortunately, she didn't have a good home. The previous host grew up in the United States since middle school. Her family was well off, and her grandfather's generation was in the business. Their business was very big. Whether it was in the country or abroad, they were very famous in the business circle. The more this kind of family was, the more independent the successor needed. Therefore, the previous host didn't live a rich life in the United States. Her monthly living expenses were the same as her classmates. They could even buy things they liked from their parents. The previous host had to carefully calculate her living expenses. But the previous host didn't blame her parents or her grandfather who doted on her because she was the only successor. Including her uncle and his children, they weren't as rich as her in the United States. Why? Because the Luo family had principles, organization, and records. Before the age of 20, they would be poor. After the age of 20, they would become a rich man who could shower money everywhere. 20 was the age when the successor inherited the Luo family's property. The previous host's father also inherited the property at this age. Her grandfather said there was an advantage to this. She knew the importance of money and that it wasn't easy to get. Of course, studying alone in the United States with just enough living expenses every month was inevitable. For example, she was hit by a skidding car on a rainy day. In the middle of the night, in a flash, a young man suddenly appeared and hugged her. At that moment, the original owner's brain immediately went numb. His legs were like a 1,000-pound boulder, and he couldn't move. Boy, I still have a chance to run. How can I run if you hug me like this? This sentence was the previous host's most honest thought. In the end, she and Su Chun were hit by a car. Fortunately, it was a rainy day and the driver drove very slowly. Otherwise, the previous host would have died. In this story, Su Chun was the supporting male character, but he was really good looking. He had a clean face and long eyelashes. Even when the wound was stitched up in the hospital, his expression didn't change at all. You're from China? Yes. I heard the nurse call you Su Chun. Yes. Why did you save me? Silence, a long silence. He nodded slightly and looked at her. Then, he shifted his gaze downwards and fixed it on a place where he could not speak. The original owner blushed and quickly scolded. What are you looking at? You. If you hadn't suddenly appeared, I wouldn't have to get stitches here, okay? After all, the original owner was very good at sports. Afterwards, she recalled the scene very seriously. The skidding car appeared out of nowhere. She ran as fast as she could to avoid the car's attack. Of course, these were all just her own wild thoughts. The reality was that she might still have been knocked upside down, and then the driver would have run away, and she would have bled to death in the rain. At that time, Su Chun simply said the words sorry to her and went to pay the medical bills. Chapter 2791. Su Chun's family wasn't very well off, but he was a genius. What was a genius? At the age of 15, he was able to pass the Stanford gifted class and get a pass to America. This was something that ordinary people couldn't compare to. A genius. The previous owner thought that it would be the first and last time she would see Su Chun, but she didn't expect him to call her on the third day. The content of the call was simple. I'll take you to the hospital to change your bandages. Actually, the previous owner's injuries weren't that serious. Her hands and feet only had a dozen stitches. She didn't tell her family about this either. What if her parents thought she was too bad and delayed her inheritance? After suffering for so many years, she finally got to the end. She couldn't give up halfway. 3 days later, he took her to another hospital. Because of the car accident, they went to the nearest hospital, but this time it was further away. The previous owner was a bit nervous sitting in Su Chen's car. afraid that she would be kidnapped by a human trafficker. Moreover, it was such a handsome human trafficker. However, she quickly dismissed the idea. She was very familiar with the hospital that Su-chan took her to. It was a hospital with top-notch medical skills and equipment. 3 years ago, she had undergone a heart operation here. The previous owner was diagnosed with heart disease 3 years ago. Because of her age, the success rate and survival rate were very high if she had a heart transplant. The operation went very smoothly. If she hadn't been in a coma for 3 days, the previous owner wouldn't have remembered it. This was the difference between the rich and the poor. The poor had to line up and wait for a heart and had to pay a high fee. The rich chose the most suitable heart and successfully transplanted it. Whenever the original owner recalled the days before and after her illness, she would feel that she was a princess through and through. At that time, she had just arrived in America and was unfamiliar with the environment. However, she felt that the people here were very friendly. The memories suddenly appeared in her mind, making her slightly stunned. She only came back to her senses when the nurse said the same thing to her many times. The wound is recovering very well. Just find the nearest hospital and change your bandages on time. Okay, thank you. That day, she met the doctor who performed the surgery. When they were chatting, Su-chan listened attentively. When she occasionally looked at his eyes, she felt a faint light in his eyes for the first time. That was a painful look in his eyes. From then on, the original owner would often receive calls from Su-chan, and he would pick her up from her high school. Sometimes he would go to the library to teach her homework, and sometimes he would take her to eat delicious food. At first, the host thought that he was embarrassed because of the car accident, but then he appeared so frequently that even a fool would know that he wanted to pursue her. Finally, a year later, on the body's birthday, Su-chan confessed to her. That year, the original owner was 18 and in her 3rd year of high school. That year, Su-chan graduated from Stanford at 20. Will you stay with me? The romantic candlelight dinner, the tender and beautiful roses, the handsome young man, and the sincere words. But in the reflection of the candlelight, she saw a pair of dim eyes. At that time, the body's original owner didn't understand why Su-chan's eyes lit up like that, but she was really happy. Not everyone you liked you back. The world was vast, and the probability of 2 people falling in love was 0.0019. Even with such a low probability, she had met him. Moreover, in such a beautiful age, she felt that she was a princess in a fairy tale. Chapter 2792. They were together for less than 6 months. The previous host graduated from high school and was about to return to China. She was going to university in a city where her parents were. Because of many reasons related to being an heir, the previous host had to go to a city's royal academy. She had to study there for 2 years before officially becoming the heir of the Luo family. In the next 2 years, she was still a poor student and couldn't reveal her identity. Not even with Su-chan, but she didn't think that Su-chan would love her so much. After she said she was going back to China, he immediately asked her which school she was going to. Oh, because of my good grades, and because I'm an international student, I should be going to the Royal Academy. Although it didn't feel good to lie, she truly loved Su-chan. If he wasn't happy, she was already prepared to cut off all means of retreat and give up her identity as the heir. At that time, Su-chan said to her, "Idiot, don't worry. We will meet again." Su-chan was right. They would meet again. Because he got a double doctorate from Stanford at the age of 20 and became a professor at a city's Royal Academy. In that calculus class, when Su-chan appeared on the podium, the previous host couldn't help but cover her mouth and cry. It was good to have someone who loved her so deeply in this world. He was like a big tree that protected her completely. That was an unforgettable love that had already taken root in her heart. Other than Su-chan, there was no room for anyone else in her love world. In the eyes of her classmates, she entered the Royal Academy with high grades and was looked down upon by others. In addition, in order to have more things to talk about with Su-chan, she gave up her favorite photography major and chose mathematics. This major was mostly chosen by children from rich families, so her position in the class was always low. But luckily, there were 2 students in this class who got in with good grades. One was her, and the other was a little fat girl. They all called her Fat Tiger, and she was happy to accept it. When the previous host asked her for her name, she smiled and said, "You can call me Fat Tiger." Some people were born optimistic and liked to smile. It seemed that as long as they stood beside her, they could be infected with her smile. But the two of them were really pitiful. They were the students on duty every day, and they were also the ones in charge of cleaning every week. The original owner was furious, but she could only grit her teeth and bear with it. After all, he could only see Su-chun every day in the mathematics department. After all, she had to persevere until she was 20 years old and shine brightly. It was a pity that the mask of pain had been removed with the ticking of time. At the beginning of the new semester, the most beautiful girl in the school transferred to the mathematics department. Her name was Lan Ting. The Lan group also has a very high position in the business circle. Although it can't be compared with the Luo family, it is indeed a veritable aristocrat. Lan Ting was different from her. She had been pampered since she was a child. She could get whatever she wanted. However, she didn't come to the mathematics department to make those rich young masters drool. She came to find Su-chun. Yes, she liked Su-chun. He was the only one she liked for 7 years. When she heard that he had returned from America and had become a professor at an elite school, she couldn't wait to transfer and become his student. However, she didn't expect Su-chun to have a girlfriend. Chapter 2793. Lan Ting privately investigated a lot of information about the original owner, an ordinary person who graduated from American high school with excellent grades. There was nothing special about her at all, but after careful investigation, she found that she had written a sentence in the form of her sports evaluation. "Although I'm good at sports, I've changed my heart, so I can't do strenuous exercise." Lan Ting called Su-chun that night and asked him to go to a nearby bar. It's been a long time. Lan Ting waved at him, looking at him with eyes that were still burning with desire. According to the time, she met Su-chun earlier than in Qingyu. Even, she liked Su-chun earlier. It was just that there was a wonderful chemical reaction between Qingyu and Su-chun, starting a fairy tale that belonged to them. She envied, she was jealous, she hated, but there was nothing she could do. Because Qingyu was her best friend, and Su-chun was the person she loved the most. Su-chun lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and said, "It's been a long time. I didn't expect you to be a professor while I'm still a student." Lan Ting poured him a glass of blue enchantress and said, "Does that elementary school student know that the boyfriend of the professor she worships is a man who smokes?" Su-chun's expression didn't change at all. He took another deep breath and looked at her faintly. "What do you want to say?" "What? It's only been 3 years, and you've already forgotten about Qingyu, and now you have a new lover?" When Lan Ting said this, she looked at Su-chun's expression seriously. That pair of eyes that were as deep as the stars, so beautiful that they could shine, revealed a painful light. "Does silence mean that I'm right?" Lan Ting continued to ask. "The 3 words in Qingyu are engraved on my heart." He pushed the cocktail to his hand and drank it in one gulp. "You won't understand." In fact, he was very afraid of meeting Lan Ting, because the two of them had the same memory. As long as he met Lan Ting, he would unconsciously think of the girl who had left this world and left his life. Then he felt that it was so difficult to breathe. "Of course I understand." Lan Ting lowered her head and took out a stack of information from the black briefcase and put it in front of him. "You'll know when you see it." "What is it?" Su-chun frowned. She had no intention of opening the document. Lan Ting sneered and said, "Do you think that the heart in her body is Qingyu's heart? You're thinking too much." In that instant, Su-chun's eyes widened as a dark light flashed between his brows. "Take a good look." That girl indeed wanted to use Qingyu's heart, but due to the compatibility, she ended up using another person's heart called Lin Huan's. Su-chun raised his right hand, his slender fingers trembling slightly. He took the briefcase and opened it round by round with a white coil. Inside were neatly arranged documents. After that day, Su-chun changed his phone number and left the classroom immediately after class, no longer waiting for the original owner. Finally, one day, the host found the right time to stop him. The warm light shone on his handsome side profile. The second button of his white shirt was unbuttoned, perfectly revealing his charming collarbone. Chapter 2794. The news of Su Chun and the previous host breaking up spread throughout the entire Royal Academy. In the past, many people didn't make things difficult for the previous host because of Su Chun. But when the news of the breakup came out, the previous host became the target of public criticism. She wasn't afraid of being bullied. She wasn't afraid of being splashed with dirty water. She wasn't afraid of being cut with a knife. She wasn't afraid of anything, but she wanted to ask why. What did she do wrong to make Su Chun break up with her? Although the time they were together was short, less than a year, they never quarreled. But they had never quarreled. She was always by his side, quietly, looking at him with an admiring attitude. She worshipped him. He was a talented young man who was so good-looking that he could shine. He loved her with no regrets. This kind of luck only existed in fairy tales. But one day, he suddenly broke up with her for no reason. How could she accept this? The previous host couldn't accept it. But Su Chun didn't give her the answer she desperately wanted, but Lan Ting did. The school bell found her and looked at her with her arms crossed. She told her to stop pestering Su Chun and leave. At that time, the previous host was already the target of public criticism. She loved Su Chun so much and hoped that they could be like in fairy tales. But Lan Ting had shattered all of her dreams. He doesn't love you. The person he loves died in a car accident 3 years ago. No, for years ago. Lan Ting looked at her condescendingly and said, "He thinks the heart of the person he loves is in your body, but that's not the case." Preposterous. What a preposterous sentence. At that time, the mind of the original owner was almost blank. There were many people around. Lan Ting's voice was very cold, and the laughter of the people around was very loud. They seemed to be laughing at her, laughing at an ugly duckling who wanted to fly to a branch and become a phoenix. Scram, do you really think you're an ugly duckling? Professor is so outstanding that you can covet him? I thought Professor Su looked familiar. I used to be in the same school as him. He had a very beautiful girlfriend. I think she was called Xingyu. How could a genius like an ugly duckling? You're thinking too much. The unpleasant words entered the ears of the original owner. She couldn't control her inner emotions and burst into tears. There were even a few girls who didn't like her to begin with who picked up stones from the ground and threw them at her. Even the boys in her class shouted loudly and threw them at her as well. Seeing that a large brick was about to hit her head, she closed her eyes and prayed silently in her heart. Until that moment, she had been imagining Su Chun appearing in front of her like a savior. However, Su Chun didn't appear. Instead, Fat Tiger, who was on duty with her every day, ate popsicles with her and shared secrets with her. Sometimes, human life could be very tenacious. Perhaps one could survive without eating or drinking for 3 days. However, human life was sometimes very fragile. A brick could take a human life. Fat Tiger suddenly appeared and hugged her, blocking the brick for her. With a thud sound, blood flowed out of his skull. She saw Fat Tiger fall in front of her, or rather, a life disappear in front of her. That day, it rained heavily. When the ambulance arrived, the girl nicknamed Fat Tiger was already dead. This was probably the first time the original owner felt a stabbing pain in her heart and a suffocating feeling. Chapter 2795. The story was very sad, and the main and side quests were still messy. However, Luo Qingchen was very clear about it. Su Chun liked Xingyu, and Xingyu died in a car accident. Her parents probably knew that she was a kind girl and decided to donate her organs to those who needed them. Su Chun thought that the original owner of the body had obtained the heart, so he risked his life to save the original owner of the body in the car accident 4 years ago. In fact, he just didn't want the person who had the heart to die again. However, the original host's heart wasn't in Xingyu's, but someone else's. Cough, cough. System, don't you think I'm amazing? The host summed it up very well. Applause. Hypocrisy. Luo Qingchen calculated the time and realized that it was a day before the original host's death. The timing wasn't good. However, since the mission was already S rank, there was nothing she could do about it. If she returned to the time when the original host had just returned to the country, many things wouldn't have happened. She could even be arrogant and cut off all ties with Su Chun. Then, she wouldn't be in such a bad situation in school. Maybe someone would go against her, but unfortunately, she had a bad temper. She didn't talk much if she could fight. Even if she was arrogant, she had to live the way she wanted. Unfortunately, she came back at the wrong time. However, she still had to thank the system. At least, she wouldn't let the chubby girl die. As for the male lead in this world, he was actually the original host's childhood friend. Their families were neighbors in the villa area. Li Chuan, the son of the real estate tycoon in the city, was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Not only was he the most handsome man in the photography department, but he was also the most handsome man in the entire Royal Academy. He was the idol of many girls. After the original host came back to the country, she actually met him once, and they had a meal together. Since the original host's identity couldn't be exposed, Li Chuan naturally knew about it. After all, the two families were friends and they were childhood friends. It was normal for him to know about the unwritten rule of the Luo family. They met when the original host had just returned to the country. A few days later, Li Chuan went to the South Pole for a shoot. He didn't come back until the original host died. If Li Chuan was in school, the original host's fate might be different. But there was no point in saying this. If the original owner hadn't died, she wouldn't have appeared. Luo Qingshun was sitting in front of the computer in the dormitory. She scratched her temple, feeling somewhat distressed. Fat Tiger looked at her from the side and said, "What are you thinking about instead of sleeping at night?" After all, this was the Imperial Noble Academy. Although they were only ordinary students who relied on their grades to get in, the dormitory was still very luxurious. Even if they lived in a two-person room. Luo Qingshun was startled. She patted her chest and said, "Don't scare people in the middle of the night. I'm thinking of countermeasures." "What countermeasures are you thinking of?" Fat Tiger waved his hand and said, "Go to bed early. We still have to be on duty during the inspection tomorrow." "Student on duty?" Luo Qingshun suddenly came back to her senses and didn't forget to repeat these 3 words. Fat Tiger knocked her head with the doll and said, "That's right. Hurry up and go to sleep." Luo Qingshun's lips twitched as she gave a cold laugh. The term student on duty really didn't suit her. She could accept everyone taking turns, but it was impossible for it to always be the two of them. Chapter 2796. After sorting out her thoughts, Luo Qingshun climbed into bed. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Those who mocked her, hurt her, and bullied her, she would not let any of them go. The next morning, Luo Qingshun woke up early. Fat Tiger was very confused as he poked his head out of the blanket. "This early?" She smiled and did not reply. Fat Tiger also got up in a hurry and gave her an umbrella from the storage cabinet. "This is for you, an early birthday present. Don't be unhappy. Cheer up." Birthday? She had almost forgotten. This umbrella had appeared in the previous host's world. At that time, she had said to Fat Tiger, "Birthday presents have to be given on the same day to have meaning. Can you get it to me tomorrow?" "Thank you." Luo Qingshun took the umbrella and looked it over. Fat Tiger liked to do handicrafts and liked the two-dimensional world, so the style of this umbrella was completely based on the style of the two-dimensional world. The entire umbrella was made of pink feathers, and there was a string of tinkling copper bells attached to the handle. You can be assured the quality of this umbrella is very good. Fat Tiger put his hands on his waist and said with a proud look, "Although it can't block the rain, it can block the sun. It's very beautiful." Luo Qingshun looked at the sunlight outside the window and said, "It's very suitable for today." In her memories, she vaguely remembered that when Fat Tiger fell into a pool of blood to save the previous host, this umbrella had also fallen beside him. The feathers of the umbrella had been dyed a dark red color by the blood, which was a shocking sight. The campus in November always had a lazy feeling. The light yellow maple leaves fell to the ground in an uneven pattern, making it quiet and beautiful. Luo Qingshun arrived at school an hour early. Fat Tiger thought that she had left early because she was on duty, but that was not the case. She was going to the administration office to change her major. Actually, the previous host was very talented in photography, but it was not because of how good she was at capturing images, but because of how good her eyesight was. She had a kind of inhuman eyesight, being able to see many things that humans could not see. So she was able to notice more details when taking pictures, allowing her to take pictures that others could not. She was naturally suited for photography, but for Su-chun, she chose mathematics, which she was the worst at. Love always makes people feel great and humble. The dean of the Academic Affairs Office looked at the awards she had received in the past for photography and looked at her grades in the mathematics department. He decided to transfer her to another department. When she returned to class, it was already time for class. However, no one seemed to be in the mood for class. Instead, a few girls who liked to stand out stood in a row with their hands in their pockets, looking at her with arrogance. Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes slightly, completely ignoring their gazes, and walked towards her seat. "Hey, do you know that there was a checkup today, but you weren't on duty?" The girl who spoke first had a slightly shrill voice. She had slightly curly long hair and wore a pair of tassel earrings. She was wearing a modified school uniform and looked like a rich young lady. Her name was Gu Zhu, and she was one of the people in the class who liked to pick on the original owner the most. She sneered, nodded slightly, and looked at Gu Zhu. "Fat Tiger and I have student numbers 25 and 26. We were on duty yesterday. Who do you think will be on duty today?" When Gu Zhu heard this, she was stunned. She originally wanted to use this chance to mock and bully Luo Qingchun because of Su-chun breaking up with her. After all, being able to be with such an outstanding man for so long, Luo Qingchun had profited greatly. All right? Chapter 2797. Student number? Gu Zhu covered her mouth and couldn't help but laugh. Our class never does the students on duty according to their student numbers. Huh? Luo Qingchun leaned on the table and tapped her right hand habitually. She slightly nodded and saw a familiar figure standing at the door of the class. The next second, she smiled and looked at Gu Zhu. "If we follow the order, the ones on duty today should be 27 and 28. But if we recalculate, the ones on duty today should be 1 and 2. She deliberately didn't follow her words because she knew that people like Gu Zhu would get angrier the more they ignored her. "What are you talking about?" Gu Zhu slammed the table and said, "I said that our class doesn't follow the student number. Don't you understand? Did you get kicked in the head by a donkey?" Gu Zhu's words were sharp and ear-piercing. There was still some noise in the class, but at this moment, there was nothing left. Luo Qingchun's face was still indifferent. She wasn't shocked by Gu Zhu's words at all. But just because she wasn't scared didn't mean Fat Tiger wasn't scared. "Queen Zhu, Qingchun isn't feeling well today, so she came a little late. I helped her do her duty. Don't be angry. Don't be angry." Fat Tiger's voice was trembling. Obviously, the other side had a lot of people. They couldn't cause trouble in this kind of school. Fat Tiger's sudden voice gave Gu Zhu a fright. Plus, she didn't like fat people. She found it strenuous to look at such a lump of fat. The next second, Gu Zhu suddenly pushed Fat Tiger and said angrily, "What does it have to do with you? Shut up." She used a lot of force, and Fat Tiger almost fell on his back. Fortunately, Luo Qingchun caught him from behind. "So, do you want 27 and 28 to be on duty today, or 1 and 2? Luo Qingchun looked at Gu Zhu's ugly face and felt very happy. At times like this, she couldn't help but praise herself. One of her strengths was that she knew how to use the most accurate method to anger the enemy half to death. "Are you King deaf?" Gu Zhu immediately raised her right hand, intending to slap Luo Qingchun. For someone like her, who had lived for thousands of years, she had experienced many things like this. Just like before, she firmly grabbed Gu Zhu's wrist and smiled disdainfully. "Have you made your choice? You mother her." In the next few seconds, Gu Zhu opened her mouth and spat out a string of unbearable curses. Luo Qingchun's eyebrows moved slightly. She cleared her throat and said, "If you haven't chosen, you can let the teacher choose." In that instant, Gu Zhu's eyes widened. The whole class looked at the door in unison. The head teacher's ashen face made everyone feel the anger in her heart. Gu Zhu hurriedly said, "Teacher, it was Luo Qingchun's turn to check the school's hygiene today, but she deliberately didn't do it and dragged the class down. She cursed first, and I couldn't hold back. The students in the class can testify." As soon as her voice fell, several girls who often hung out with Guju echoed, "Teacher, Juju is right. This Luo Qingchun is too outrageous. She deliberately doesn't like our class. That's right. This kind of ordinary student is envious of us. They just don't like us." Chapter 2798. "All of you shut up," the homeroom teacher roared. "Do you really think I'm old and blind?" "Teacher." Guju still wanted to say something, but was scolded by the homeroom teacher. "I'm not old yet. I can see very clearly." Probably because they didn't expect the homeroom teacher to be so angry, no one dared to say a word. Although they were usually arrogant and despotic in school, after all, their status wasn't that high. If the teacher invited their parents, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Today, the students with student numbers 1 and 2 will be on duty. The homeroom teacher walked to the podium, pushed up her glasses, and said, "Everyone is already a university student, so you don't need me to teach you how to be united and friendly." "But teacher," Guju gritted her teeth and said, "no matter how it's rotation, it should be the 27th and 28th students on duty. Why should it be 1 and 2? Because her student number was 2, so she absolutely wouldn't let herself be at a disadvantage. Duty student? Did she, the Queen of Zhu, need to do such a dirty thing? The next second, another girl with long hair, wearing a pink jacket and a crown hairpin on her head, said, "Why can't it be 1 and 2? You say it as if 1 and 2 have been on duty before." "Su Baoli, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak." Guju angrily glared at her and said, "What does it have to do with you? I'm 27. How is it none of my business?" Of course, Su Baoli knew that Guju's family was rich, but her family wasn't poor either. She was the daughter of a rich family with the temperament of a princess, so why should she be on duty? "All of you, stop arguing." The homeroom teacher slammed the ruler twice and said, "If anyone says another word, I'll immediately invite your parents here in the afternoon and let them see what kind of things their daughters say in class." Guju didn't speak anymore. She fiercely glared at Su Baoli, and finally her eyes fell on Luo Qingchun. She couldn't deal with Su Baoli, but that didn't mean she couldn't deal with Luo Qingchun. This damn poor person, if it wasn't for her disobedience, she wouldn't have looked so bad in front of her classmates. There were even a few boys who were good to her, but after she scolded them, the way they looked at her changed. "Luo Qingchun, just you wait." Without Professor Su Chen's protection, even if she died on the side of the road, no one would collect her corpse. After the students returned to their seats, Luo Qingchun felt a different gaze on her. She didn't need to look in that direction to know whose gaze it was. Lan Ting, a person who indirectly killed the original owner of the body. Compared to Gu Zhu and Su Baoli, in Lan Ting's world, she was the high and mighty queen. Moreover, after in Qingchun, Su, Su-chun, Su, and Su, and Su. At least that was Su too. "Calm, Luo. Calm. To Luo, to Qingchun. Are Luin Zhu." She was truly frightened. Even after an entire morning, her hands and feet were still trembling uncontrollably. "It's okay," Luo Qingchun said, while eating corn on the cob. "Don't worry. If something really happens, I'll protect you." Chapter 2799. "Hey, this classmate, a handsome boy walked to their table. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was frightened by Fat Tiger's scream and shrank back. "What's the matter?" Luo Qingchun calmly looked up with a cold gaze. Actually, she knew why the boy came to her. Because this scene had appeared in the memories that the original owner had given her before. "Miss Lan Ting wants you to go to the South Field to find her. She said you have doubts about Professor Su Chun, and she can give you an answer." At that time, the previous owner's mood was very complicated. Su Chun broke up with her without warning and stepped on all her dreams. She didn't know why, and she wanted to know the reason. She vaguely remembered that the previous owner ran to the South Field like crazy. But what awaited her was not love, but the naked truth and the end of her life. Now, she didn't need to know the answer. But that didn't mean she didn't plan on going. She had to stand up from where she died. She didn't care about Su Chun, but that didn't mean she would let the person who wanted to hurt her live comfortably. "Okay." Luo Qingchun continued to eat her corn and said, "Tell her to wait. I'll walk over after eating." The handsome boy paused for a moment. Sister Ting didn't seem to tell him this. She said that the girl would be very excited and run over like crazy. But it turned out that the girl was calmer than anyone else and didn't run over like crazy. Okay, the boy was a bit embarrassed, but he didn't say anything else, so he left the cafeteria. Luo Qingxin nodded and looked at Fat Tiger. Chubby girl, go to the mathematics research lab and find someone. You mean Professor Su Chun? Fat Tiger naturally knew about her relationship with Su Chun. So when she didn't sleep last night, she was worried and forced herself to say a few words to her. But she was in a very good state today. Fat Tiger felt like she had walked out of the shadow of heartbreak. Well, smart. Luo Qingxun drank 2 mouthfuls of borscht and said, "You let her go to the sports field in the south and tell the truth." Fat Tiger looked at her worriedly and said, "They're all from the upper class. Otherwise, you shouldn't go. I have a bad feeling about this." Fat Tiger was especially afraid. Girls more or less had a sixth sense. However, her sixth sense was particularly strong today, and she couldn't get rid of it. One had to admit that Fat Tiger's premonition was quite accurate. If it had developed according to the original owner's plot, it would have been a tragic ending. However, she wasn't the original owner, and she didn't love Su Chun. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Luo Qingxun smiled. "I never fight a battle that I'm not sure of." Luo Qingxun delayed going to the south field for nearly half an hour. First of all, there was a certain distance between the mathematics research laboratory and the south field. It would take at least 15 minutes to walk there, and that was not including the time Fat Tiger took to find Su Chun. Second of all, it would be class time in half an hour, so there wouldn't be many onlookers. She wasn't sure if Fat Tiger would appear like in the original owner's world. In order to avoid accidents, it was better to have fewer onlookers. Third of all, she wanted Lan Ting to wait. Chapter 2800. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Luo Qingxun leisurely drank yogurt as she arrived at the sports field in the south. Probably because it was the first class in the afternoon, there weren't many classes on the sports field. There was only one class at most, and it was especially far from Lan Ting's seat. Luo Qingxun took a sip of thick yogurt. She put her left hand in her jacket pocket and walked towards Lan Ting. She didn't look good, probably because she had waited for too long and was in a bad mood. However, the moment she saw Luo Qingxun, her unhappiness disappeared. She knew that what she was about to say would make the girl in front of her suffer. Lan Ting crossed her arms and looked at her like a schoolbell. "Nice to meet you. You're Luo Qingxun's classmate. Speak." Luo Qingxun yawned and said, "Don't waste everyone's time." Her gaze was indifferent, but her voice was inexplicably cold. Lan Ting frowned and said, "You and Su Chun won't have a future. Don't be stubborn." "Am I not enlightened?" Luo Qingxun slowly looked up and smiled coldly. "We've broken up." Lan Ting was stunned when she heard this. This wasn't the scene she had imagined. Shouldn't the girl in front of her be panicking and desperately pouncing on her to ask for the reason? She wanted to see such a scene. She wanted to see her pained and crazy expression. To a certain extent, she was jealous of her. She was jealous that she could stay by Su Chen's side for the past year. She was jealous that she could receive his embrace and love. Therefore, the more bloody the truth was, the more she couldn't wait to tell her. Then, when she saw her panicked and in pain, she would feel pleasure in her heart. However, she didn't expect that Luo Qingxun didn't show any signs of pain. Instead, she looked indifferent. Such an expression made her feel angry in her heart. The next second, she bit her lips and looked down at her. She said coldly, "He doesn't love you. The person he loved died in a car accident 3 years ago. No, 3 years ago. He thought that the heart of the person he loved was in your body, but that wasn't the case." Her words were sonorous and powerful. She was like a cold executioner who wanted to tear someone's heart apart. This sentence had once appeared in the original owner's world. She had used the cruelest method to push the original owner into the endless darkness. Unfortunately, these words couldn't hurt her at all. "Oh," Luo Qingxun nodded and said, "but we've already broken up." What's the point of saying these words? It was probably because she was indifferent enough that Lan Ting appeared to be very flustered. You. Lan Ting sneered and said, "Stop pretending. It's impossible that you don't care about Su-chan. If you feel bad, then cry. Why torture yourself?" Hee hee. Luo Qing-chan said with a cold smile. "Who do you think is the one torturing themselves more right now?" Luo Qing-chan. The next second, she took a big sip of yogurt. She looked at Lan Ting indifferently and said, "I have to go to class. If you have something to say, you can talk to Professor Su alone." As her voice fell, she pointed at a place not far behind Lan Ting. There stood a youth in a suit with deep eyes. Chapter 28:01. Lan Ting didn't expect Su-chan to come. She didn't expect that when she turned around, Luo Qing-chan had already walked far away. She didn't even look back. Her gaze didn't even fall on Su-chan for a second. It was as if he was someone she didn't want to get back. It was as if he was a stranger. Su-chan. Lan Ting walked forward and looked at Su-chan nervously. She didn't know why he came, but she knew that at such a close distance, he must have heard her conversation with Luo Qing-chan. She didn't say anything? Su-chan didn't ask why she went to look for Luo Qing-chan, but what the girl called Luo Qing-chan said. Lan Ting was stunned. There was a sinking feeling in her heart. She could clearly feel the disappointment in Su-chan's eyes. He wasn't reprimanding her, but he was disappointed. You should have heard what she said. Lan Ting pursed her lips and smiled. Actually, I was afraid that she wouldn't understand and would let her imagination run wild. Fortunately, I told her the truth. This way, she can get over it faster. Don't you think so? She tried her best to hide the true purpose in her heart, making her more perfect in Su-chan's eyes. Yes, Su-chan seemed to laugh at himself. I heard it. In fact, he didn't just hear it. He also saw it. He saw the indifferent expression on her face and the indifference in her clear eyes. A feeling of unwillingness spread from the bottom of his heart. It was an indescribable feeling. Are you unhappy? Lan Ting asked tentatively. She didn't dare to purse her lips. Why? Why did Su-chan look at her as if he cared a lot about Luo Qing-chan? He cared about her eyes and her words. It was as if her eyes and indifferent words had deeply hurt him. Why did he show that pair of hurt eyes? He shouldn't have this kind of eyes, I won't. Su-chan narrowed his eyes and forcefully suppressed the emotions in his heart. He looked at Lan Ting and said, I'm sorry for what happened between me and her. Don't look for her again, and don't find trouble with her. Since he couldn't be by her side, he didn't want her life to change. She was only 18 years old. She should be at the age where she should be radiating youth and radiating heat. His heartlessness should not affect her love for him. But why did he feel so uncomfortable? His heart skipped a beat, as if the scene of her turning around and leaving was replaying in his mind. Again and again and again. All of a sudden, he didn't even know what he wanted. Lan Ting was a little speechless. She could only proudly pout her mouth and said, Got it. In fact, she knew very well that even if she didn't find trouble with Luo Qing-chan, there would be people in her class who would find trouble with her. For example, Guju. Luo Qing-chan had treated Guju in the morning, so Guju naturally took it to heart and had already thought of a way to deal with her. There was one place in the Royal Noble Academy that was not designed well, and that was the bicycle parking lot, which was very far from the school building. It took nearly 20 minutes to walk from the classroom to the parking lot, and there weren't many people in this school who rode bicycles. After class, Luo Qing-chan and Fat Tiger went to the bicycle parking lot. Little did they know, they were stopped. Bullying Queen Zhu and you still want to get away and skate? Don't you think you're dreaming? The boy standing in the middle snorted and looked at Luo Qing-chan and Fat Tiger with a sharp gaze. Chapter 28:02. The light of the setting sun shone on her clean face. The cherry trees on both sides of the campus swayed with the wind, and pink cherry petals fell. Such an atmosphere was actually more suitable for young couples to take a stroll rather than fighting. But she had no choice. She was the passive party. No wonder she destroyed such a beautiful scene. Although there were not many people around, there were still some. However, when they saw Wang Bing and his lackeys, they all tactfully kept a distance of 10 meters. Then, they took out their phones to take pictures while watching the show. Brother Bing, let's talk nicely. Fat Tiger's legs began to tremble violently, and he almost knelt down. She had to admit that her psychological quality was too poor. Talk nicely? Why didn't you talk nicely to Queen Pearl this morning? Wang Bing spat the chewing gum on the ground and said, "Isn't it too late to beg for mercy now?" At this moment, a few of his lackeys behind him took a step forward, making them look especially imposing. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes and took out the birthday present that Fat Tiger gave her this morning. It was a feather umbrella full of two-dimensional elements, and a faint fragrance filled the air. This umbrella had been left in a pool of blood in a parallel universe. If she could get it again, why couldn't the umbrella? Moreover, it was her birthday present. Ha 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 ha. Oh, are you an idiot? Are you going to cosplay with us by taking a two-dimensional umbrella? What an idiot. This kind of woman doesn't even deserve to talk to Queen Pearl, okay? She's quite pretty. Is there something wrong with her brain? Why don't you beg for mercy, kowtow out to Queen Pearl, and then come to be my woman? Maybe you can avoid a beating? Unbearable words came into her ears, but her expression was still calm. Fat Tiger, who was beside her, was so scared that he cried. Although she was often bullied in class, this was the first time she encountered such a situation. As a person with a weak psychological quality, it was indeed difficult for her. What's the point of nagging? A group of men only know how to talk? Luo Qingshan coldly raised her eyes, the corners of her mouth forming an extremely faint smile as she said, "Hurry up and go." She hated people who spoke tough words before a battle, especially those who didn't have much ability but liked to boast about themselves. Could it be that these people didn't weigh their own worth before doing something? Could it be that he had watched too many Hong Kong movies? Or he just wanted to become a gangster? Hiss! At this moment, the surrounding students all sucked in a breath of cold air. They thought that Luo Qingshan would run away like crazy and then find a way to find the teacher. They didn't expect her to fight back. Did this person really want to be beaten into a pig's head? There were more and more onlookers around them. Wang Bing's face flushed red when she provoked him. He thought that he was the big brother of the school. His father was originally just a hooligan, but one day, he suddenly became a nouveau riche. With a father who was involved in both the underworld and the underworld, he naturally felt that he was very powerful. He was always involved in fights, and the teachers couldn't do anything about him. Of course, the most important reason was that a certain young master wasn't in school. Otherwise, whenever he met him, he would have to lower his head and consciously walk to the side. Chapter 28:03. At the same time, Su Chun had just left the mathematics research laboratory when he heard the students passing by talking about the east parking lot. Wang Bing brought a group of people to fight Luo Qingshan. Let's go take a look. Okay. Our school hasn't been so lively in a long time. Su Chun frowned and felt a wave of panic in his heart. He walked down the stairs in 3 steps and quickly headed to the east parking lot that the students had mentioned. Along the way, he anxiously unbuttoned 1 or 2 buttons of his shirt. His heart was pounding and cold sweat was dripping down from his forehead. There seemed to be a lot of people going in that direction, and they were all discussing Luo Qingshan. He clenched his right fist, and the days he spent with her in the past year appeared in his mind. It was so real and so clear. Su Chun. The next second, his wrist was pulled. He turned around and saw a familiar face. What's the matter? Su Chun frowned and raised his right hand. Where are you going? Lan Ting looked at his nervous appearance, and his heart was so uncomfortable. Impossible. After Qingyu died, Su Chun couldn't have such an expression. He was nervous about a person. He was nervous about Luo Qingshan. But why was he nervous about her? Could it be? No matter where I go, it's my own business. Su Chen's deep eyes revealed a faint light. He looked at Lan Ting in front of him and said, "It has nothing to do with you." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and continued walking forward. Lan Ting bit her lips and shouted angrily, "Yes, it has nothing to do with me. But Su Chun, are you going to save the beauty? Let me tell you, this will only make her more infatuated with you. This way, you won't be able to get rid of her." Lan Ting was very smart. She used another point to cut into Su Chen's heart. She used the result to persuade him to think twice. I already let her down. If I let her get hurt because of me, then I'm worse than a pig or a dog. After Su Qin said this, he ran forward without looking back. He used an absolutely reasonable reason to fool himself and kept telling himself that he just felt sorry for her. Under such a premise, he couldn't let her get hurt. And she was no longer that young girl who could get hurt. Cherry blossoms fluttered and fell. She held a feather umbrella in her hand and stood under the red sunset, knocking down the people in front of her one by one. The initial waves of sighs turned into cheers in the end. Of course, Wang Bing didn't expect that he and his followers would be defeated by a girl, even though there were so many of them. Originally, they wanted to show off their power one by one, but they didn't expect that no matter who it was, they would be beaten to the ground in less than 5 seconds by Luo Qingchen. Later on, they didn't care about their pride and gritted their teeth to attack together. Unexpectedly, the result was still the same. They were all knocked down to the ground by Luo Qingchen in less than 10 seconds. What was going on? How did this little girl become so powerful? With so many people looking at him and so many phones taking pictures of him, it would be too embarrassing if he left with his tail between his legs. You King. In the next second, Wang Bing took out a small knife from his pocket and said, I'll fight it out with you. In a flash, Wang Bing picked up the knife and stabbed in Luo Qingchen's direction. Chapter 2804. Although this extreme couldn't create any waves in Luo Qingchen's heart at all, she quickly grabbed Wang Bing's wrist and twisted it forcefully. The sharp knife directly cut the back of her hand. With a thud, the knife fell to the ground. A breeze blew past, and cherry blossoms fell. She held up the umbrella like a beam of light, and no one could block out her sharpness. And Su Chan happened to see this scene. It was so dazzling that he could not look straight at it. Probably no one could understand his feelings at this moment. Perhaps even he himself did not understand. How is it possible? Lan Ting looked at the scene in front of her in disbelief. Her eyes widened, and her lips could not close. How was it possible? This was too unbelievable. Even if Luo Qingchen practiced martial arts like Taekwondo, she was facing so many people alone. How could she beat them down so easily and not be injured at all? Luo Qingchen gently patted the cherry blossoms that fell on her shoulder. Everyone who wanted to beat her up fell to the ground. She thought that today's matter was over. Unexpectedly, it was at this moment that Gu Zhu stood up. Why are you all so happy? Are we aristocrats going to be bullied by an ordinary student in the future? Gu Zhu's voice was still very sharp. Standing in the crowd, she glared at Luo Qingchen fiercely. She used a harsh tone to sow discord between Luo Qingchen and the aristocrats. She got people to beat up Luo Qingchen because she wanted her to be beaten black and blue, not because she wanted her to shine. Although Gu Zhu was not very popular with girls, she was quite popular with boys. A few boys began to chime in, and the words they said were very unpleasant. Please, what's there to be proud of? Do you really think you're the savior of the ordinary students? That's right. Bullying our Queen Zhu. Did water get into your brain? I'll kill you. In an instant, a golden brick flew in their direction. Luo Qingchen narrowed her cold eyes and opened the umbrella with her right hand. The brick fell to the ground with a dong sound, accompanied by white feathers. The one who threw the brick at her was a boy with glasses. He had a crew cut, carried a green school bag, and wore a green hat. The memories in his mind began to intertwine. This person's figure had also appeared in the world of the original owner. If she remembered correctly, he was the one who had hit the original owner with a brick and killed Fat Tiger. Murderer? Do you want to be a murderer again? Luo Qingchen put down the umbrella. Her clear eyes flashed with a touch of darkness, and in this darkness, there was a killing intent that ordinary people couldn't see. The bespectacled boy seemed to feel Luo Qingchen's gaze. He squatted down, picked up another brick, and threw it in his direction. His mouth was still muttering, "Trash, go to hell." Logically speaking, if this wasn't modern society, Luo Qingchen would probably really kill him. Whether it was a parallel world or not, killing someone meant paying with their life. In an instant, when Su Chan was about to charge forward, she was suddenly hugged by Lan Ting. Luo Qingchen wanted to dodge the brick, but she never thought that someone would open her umbrella. In front of everyone, that person stood by her side. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. Chapter 28:05. Luo Qingchen was stunned for a moment. The moment she looked up, she saw an unforgettable scene. The light from the setting sun shone on his fair and handsome face. He was wearing a white shirt with a pointed collar. He didn't follow the school's rules and didn't wear a tie. The first 3 buttons in front of his chest weren't buttoned up, revealing his collarbone. There was a white diamond pin on the collar of the shirt. The diamond-shaped cut of the white diamond was shining brightly. Cherry blossoms fell gently, mixing with the white feathers on the umbrella. It was a beautiful scene. She suddenly felt a little nervous. This was the first time she saw Mu Lichuan. Even in the memory of the original owner, this person who was feared by everyone in school had only appeared a few times. If nothing had happened to the original owner this afternoon, Mu Lichuan would have returned from his inspection in the evening. Hiss! Everyone sucked in cold air. That was Mu Lichuan they were talking about. He was definitely the most handsome man in the Royal Academy. Luo Qingchen took the umbrella over. The moment their eyes met, she saw his face more clearly. He had short flaxen hair and deep eyes. He was unruly, but he didn't lose the quality of being the descendant of a big family. He had a faint smile on his face, and his entire body was emitting an aura that prevented people from getting close to him. However, this aura didn't seem to apply to her. At that moment, Wang Bing and the others' legs immediately turned to jelly. It was normal for them to bully Luo Qingchen, but Mu Lichuan wasn't someone they could afford to offend. Gu Zhu bit her lip. Although she was still unwilling, she didn't dare to say anything. Lan Ting and Su Chun were still standing nearby. Both of them had a complicated look in their eyes. The sudden appearance of this young man seemed to have broken the balance between the two of them. However, to Luo Qingchen, he was the main character of this world. He was shining brightly. The discussions of the surrounding crowd gradually reached her ears. They were all words of surprise, doubt, puzzlement, and even jealousy and anger. Oh my God, young Master Li. Why is he helping Luo Qingchen? Ah, I'm so jealous. The school hunk is a hero saving the damsel in distress. What nonsense are you talking about? Young Master Li just happened to pass by. It's impossible for him to know Luo Qingchen. I agree. If he knew her, how could young Master Li not know about her relationship with Professor Su Chun? Right. He must have pitied her, so he helped her. Young Master Li is so handsome. Why were all these gossips trying to belittle her and elevate Mu Lichuan? This kind of feeling was quite uncomfortable, okay? For the sake of your identity as the successor, I will leave first. He lowered his eyes and chuckled, a faint light flashing in his eyes. Ahem. Luo Qingchen cleared her throat and spat out 2 words from between her teeth. I won't see you off. With Mu Lichuan's appearance, even if he didn't say anything, no one dared to touch Luo Qingchen today. The bespectacled boy with the brick was long gone. Wang Bing smiled awkwardly at her and then fled in a hurry. Fat Tiger was already lying on the ground in fear. His chubby hands were still trembling. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving behind a field of white feathers and cherry blossoms. Chapter 28:06. Luo Qingchen helped Fat Tiger up from the ground, patted the dust off her body, and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to eat something delicious." Qingchen, we're still alive, right? Her voice trembled, and the image of Wang Bing picking up the small brick and the man with the crew cut picking up the brick appeared in her mind. For a moment, she almost thought that she was going to die here today. Fortunately, none of the tragedies happened. Fortunately, it was just a scare without any danger. Don't worry, we're still alive. Luo Qingchen patted her back gently and continued to walk in the direction of the parking lot. She knew that Su Chan and Lan Ting were still standing not far away, but she didn't even look at them from the corner of her eyes. Some people were destined to never be able to stir up any storms in her life. They would never be able to do so. The last light of the setting sun slowly dissipated, and the street lights on both sides of the campus lit up on time. Su Chen looked at Luo Qingchen's back for a long time, but he didn't call out her name. He was the same as before, no. He was even more confused than before, because he didn't know what he wanted, but he knew very well that he didn't like this feeling. He didn't like it very much. Su-chun, did you want to save her just now? Lan Ting bit her lips and carefully opened her mouth. Her heart felt like it was being pressed by 1,000 pounds of stone, and she couldn't breathe. Lan Ting, Su-chun clenched his fists and growled. She's my student, shouldn't I save her? Do you know how despicable your actions were? She took a deep breath, and her eyes were filled with tears. She bit her lips and said, Did you save her because she's your student, or because she's your ex-girlfriend? Su-chun, are you worthy of Qingyu? Whenever she felt that she couldn't suppress Su-chun, she always liked to bring out in Qingyu. The 3 words that she used to hate the most had now become a sharp weapon in her hand. Do you know how kind Qingyu is? Su-chun sneered. She's the kind of person who would tell her parents that if she were to die one day, her organs would be unconditionally donated to those in need. He loved in Qingyu, loved her smile, loved her kindness. She was different from those girls who like to laze around at home or go shopping on weekends. In her free time, she would either go to the welfare center or the orphanage. She wanted to do more things that she could. Unfortunately, none of these girls had a good ending. Why are you talking about it? Lan Ting pursed her lips and said, What I'm saying is, do you have other people in your heart besides Qingyu? She had probed him again and again because she wanted to know the answer. She wanted Su-chun to tell her decisively that after so many years, he still only loved in Qingyu. At the very least, she only needed to compare herself to a dead person. At the very least, she felt that she still had a chance. Su-chun sneered. Maybe I only have Qingyu in my heart, or maybe there's someone else. But there's definitely no you. You. Lan Ting looked at his cold and resolute eyes, and her face turned pale. Such cruel and heartless words.